Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with the US President Donald Trump, the Colombian artist Doris Salcedo, and Prince Harry. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we are live downtown in our CBC studios. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It's already 17 degrees in Winnipeg. We're only getting to 18 today. We'll have increasing cloud this morning as a lot of educators return to work for this fall. Brandon, increasing cloud for your start to the school year, a high of 19 degrees. Thompson, cloudy with showers today, 10 to 15 millimeters expected. So back to school, of course, mostly administrators for today, and then the rest of the week we're going to start to see students head back. Welcome to your Tuesday morning, post-Labor Day morning show on September 2nd. Let's say good morning to the team here at CBC. Corey Funk is with us. Good morning, Corey. Corey directs the show and will be on air covering the commute. Mr. Abby Adeyemi is also here, our senior tech on the show, and Abby will be covering the forecast throughout the show. Also, Brad Lillies is back behind the controls of our YouTube stream this morning if you're watching there. Heather Wells has the day's news headlines to start the show now. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, people in a North Winnipeg trailer park say their community is the target of vandalism and intimidation. Mailboxes at the River Grove mobile home estates were spray painted with the words trailer trash earlier this summer. Weeks later, the trailer park's owner received an anonymous letter telling residents to stay away from River Grove Drive, just south of the park. We're going to hear more about what's been going on there. And they came from communities in northern Manitoba and in Ontario to honor a Norwegian hiker who died in northern Manitoba. More than 100 people gathered in Winnipeg for the funeral of Stefan yesterday. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
In addition to hearing more on the news, we'll hear more about that in the first hour of the show as well. Also in the first hour, we're going to hear what the highlight of your summer was. We're asking you on Facebook to weigh in, and we'll share some of those comments as well. We'll hear what Gavin Axelrod heard from folks over at the Forks yesterday. Plus, at 10 to 7, some political talk. The race is officially on to find a replacement for the former leader of the federal NDP, Jagmeet Singh. So we're going to take you into that race and who has thrown their hat in and what the issues are in the party. And later in the program, speaking of politics, Premier Canoe will be back here in our CBC studios for our first monthly interview after the summer break. And I say break lightly because what a summer it's been in Manitoba. Stay tuned, the World Report is next.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Kathleen Edwards is one of Canada's greatest songwriters, but she says that she's aware that she's never had a hit. That led to a moment where she reconsidered her music, her new album, and really her life. Kathleen will be here to tell you about that and her excellent new album, Billionaire. Who's gonna save your soul? That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdelmahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. Russian President Vladimir Putin is praising his relationship with China's Xi Jinping. Putin is in Beijing for bilateral meetings ahead of a large military parade tomorrow. It will mark Japan's formal surrender at the end of the Second World War. Laura Westbrook has more from Hong Kong.
Sitting down to tea together, it looks like Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping's so-called no-limits partnership is going strong. Moscow counts Beijing as a key strategic partner. Russia's been hit by multiple rounds of Western sanctions imposed after its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Beijing insists it is a neutral party. While a deal with the Russian leader to end the war in Ukraine continues to elude US President Donald Trump, President Xi's welcome of President Putin to Beijing demonstrates their close ties. And with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un also in China to watch over a military parade to mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War, Professor Wu Xinbo of Shanghai's Fudan University says this shows China's international influence is crucial.
For Donald Trump, he may be envious of this because these are the leaders that President Trump very much wants to meet today. Putin, Xi, and Kim Jong-un. So Trump may view this positively and reminds him that he needs to get along with China.
Drew Thompson from the Singapore think tank the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies says the carefully choreographed parade shows China's growing military power.
Xi Jinping's prominence also underscores that he's in full control of the party, its army, the government, and the propaganda and ideological apparatus of all three.
Xi's display of his diplomatic clout with a group of authoritarian regimes comes at a time when US President Donald Trump's isolationist policies strain Washington's alliances. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
In Sudan's Darfur region, it is disaster on top of displacement and disease. A landslide has completely wiped out the village of Tarasin. At least 1,000 people are believed to have been killed. For 2 years, the region has been engulfed in civil war.
And this is right in the middle of the conflict and the rainy season and the cholera break.
Antoine Gerard is the UN Sudan Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator. He told the BBC the war and the terrain make it almost impossible to access this mountainous remote village.
We do not have helicopters, so everything is on cars in the very bumpy roads. It takes time, and this is the rainy season, so some of the time we have to wait a couple of hours, maybe sometime a day or two, to cross a wadi, a valley with water.
He says this part of Darfur has been hosting internally displaced people who fled the fighting farther north. The Taliban says at least 1,400 people have been killed by the earthquake that hit Afghanistan. More than 5,000 houses have been destroyed in the disaster. Some remote regions are still inaccessible. And as Paula Diane Perez reports, members of the Afghan community in Quebec say they are taking relief efforts into their own hands.
Oh my God, it's hard, you know.
Makai Harif watches devastating images of Afghanistan on her phone. They're photos of the rubble and people in hospital.
I'm going by myself. Even as a long destination to go is hard for my age is over 75, but I want to go to help people.
The founder of the Afghan Women's Center of Montreal says the diaspora has seen this before. 2 deadly earthquakes struck the country in 2022 and 2023. Back then, the organization collected donations. Executive Director Victoria Jahesh says one of the challenges is keeping that money out of the hands of the Taliban, listed by the Canadian government as a terrorist group. So the center has been using its contacts, mainly family members and trusted organizations, to distribute donations to those in need.
So this time, again, we have, some relatives in that particular part. And also we know some very research organizations in Afghanistan on the ground. And they happen to have, a lot of experience.
Jahesh says it's not enough. She wants the Canadian government to help as well. In a statement, Global Affairs Canada says it's providing support to partners on the ground dealing with the existing humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. That includes organizations like the World Food Programme, which are now pivoting to support immediate relief efforts. The federal government says it stands ready to help further as required. Paula Diane Perez, CBC News, Montreal.
Structural firefighters are standing by in case an out-of-control wildfire reaches Fort Providence. Northwest Territories Fire says the flames came within 900 meters of the community yesterday. But fuel breaks have been built, and crews are trying to keep the area damp. Juanita Taylor has more on the work being done to try to protect homes.
These cats are working here. They're tight-lining the fire.
Danny Bolio is working to strengthen the fire break on the outskirts of Fort Providence. He is also the mayor, protecting his community from the raging wildfire.
They have hoses laid all over the town, sprinklers up on the houses, especially the houses, what we call the back street, along the tree line.
The wildfire is pushing towards town. Some essential workers were ordered out Monday, a day after residents began to flee to Hay River, 180 kilometers away. Evacuee Ruby Minoza is worried.
Am I going to go home? Is my house still going to be standing up when I get home? Or my grandkids are going to have a house to go home to?
The wildfire is one of dozens burning in the Northwest Territories. Premier R.J. Simpson wants more federal support.
Small jurisdiction, and we can only handle so much. We only have so much capacity But with the world the way it is, with climate change and the frequency and severity of these disasters, it's tough. We're stretched.
Simpson says the territory has reached out to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre for more crews and aircraft to fight this fire. Come midweek, winds are expected to pick up again towards Fort Providence. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Hay River, Northwest Territories.
Israel is mobilizing tens of thousands of reservists, part of its plan to widen its offensive in Gaza City. Ground and air forces are striking two western neighborhoods. They also say Gaza City is still home to a vast network of Hamas tunnels. It is also one of the last places of refuge in the northern Gaza Strip. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are sheltering there. It's been more than 2 months since a child was fatally injured at a harness racing track in New Brunswick. His mother says she is still waiting for reports from the coroner and police. The town of Woodstock has allowed the races to resume following a safety review, but the young boy's mother says she is also not getting any answers as to why the town made that decision. The CBC's Rachel Cave reports.
Here they come. Cora Fraser says she has watched the June 14th race on video on repeat. Her kids attended the track that day with other family. The video shows the metal gate of the starting truck sweeping so close to the outside fence, people who were leaning on and over the rails jump back. We need an ambulance. Call an ambulance. When Fraser got word her 3-year-old son Gunnar had been hit, she raced to the track.
My oldest daughter, she was screaming, crying.
The town suspended racing on June 17th, then voted to restart August 4th, based on a safety review that no one will release. There is now new fencing up at the track, but the mayor would not do an interview, nor would anyone from the Woodstock Driving Club, Horse Racing New Brunswick, or the Atlantic Provinces Harness Racing Commission. Simon Watts, the deputy chief of the Woodstock Police, says prosecutors have yet to review the investigation.
It's technically still active. It's just coming to a conclusion.
Meanwhile, people continue to lean on and over the fences at raceways across Canada, including Charlottetown, one of the maritime tracks that has new warning signs telling people to get back while the starting gate passes. Fraser says she couldn't bear to see it happen again.
I just need details.
Fraser says if changes have been made to ensure public safety, the public should know. Rachel Cave, CBC News, Woodstock, New Brunswick.
Tributes are pouring in for Canadian actor Greene. He's being remembered for his Oscar-nominated performance in Dances with Wolves and his refusal to be typecast in certain roles. Greene was from Six Nations Reserve. Some of his film credits include The Green Mile, Die Hard 3, and The Twilight Saga. This year, he was honored with the Governor General's Lifetime Artistic Achievement Award.
That was a major coup. I thought, wow, why me? It means a lot to be recognized in my own country.
He died yesterday in Stratford, Ontario, after a long illness. Greene was 73. That is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Post-Labor Day long weekend. Rev your engines. Get your lunch-making skills ready. Here we go. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. This hour on the program, we are going to be talking about federal politics. The race is officially on to find a permanent replacement for the former leader of the federal NDP, Jagmeet Singh. So that's coming up at 10 to 7. Whose hat's in the ring and what does that party need? Stay tuned. Also, what was the highlight of your summer? You've been writing into us on Facebook, and also CBC Manitoba's Gavin Axelrod took that question to the Forks yesterday over the long weekend. We're going to hear some of the responses that he heard. And stay tuned, because in a moment, Heather Wells is going to be in to talk about the funeral for the Norwegian trekker who died here. And here is Heather Wells now with our morning headlines for this Tuesday, September 2nd. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Yes, about 100 people gathered in Winnipeg yesterday for the funeral of Stefan Skovik. He is the Norwegian hiker who died in northern Manitoba trying to reach his goal of getting to York factory in northern Manitoba. He was found drowned just a few kilometers away from his goal. And we're going to hear from some of the people who were at yesterday's remembrance coming up. A North Winnipeg trailer park has been the target of vandalism and anonymous threats through this summer. People in River Grove mobile home estates say their mailboxes were spray painted with the words trailer trash. And a sign was later posted in a field telling residents to stay away from River Grove Drive, a neighborhood just south of the trailer park. We'll hear more about what's behind this in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
So we have to clap for you, Heather. Ready? Here we go. Here's
Why?
me and Corey. You got to put your mics on, you guys.
You're trying to make me wake up,
There,
right?
yeah, now we have three of us clapping. Woo! No, Labor Day. And who was doing the labor? Not me or Abby or Corey. You were here. So with others filling in for us as well yesterday on the program. So thanks to all of our colleagues for working on Labor Day. And you know what? I thought about this yesterday, not just here at CBC, but as I was relaxing, and I did enjoy my day off. But I was thinking about, all the people who are never off, always work those long weekends, always work the holidays, always work over, the different breaks, no matter what's happening. So we want to thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. No problem. And you got to enjoy some beautiful weather.
I'll tell you what. Let's get into the forecast with Abby. We can't really ask Abby for much more than that from a long weekend.
Yeah, true. More like from south, tracking it all the way up north. We're going to see mild and mostly comfortable start to your Tuesday. The skies will vary from partially cloudy conditions, but overall it will be pleasant. We won't be feeling the heat this week. Winnipeg right now, 17 degrees, partly cloudy outside. Through the morning, we see some cloud cover. There's a slim chance of showers around the noon period. By the afternoon period, we will see more like that mix of sun and clouds with a mild high of 18. We're already at 17. We should be getting to 18 very soon. And then similar tonight, we see partly cloudy cover. That slight chance of showers will stay with us into the overnight period. Across the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures between 13 and 18 degrees. Also partly cloudy outside in most of the regions. Highs 19 degrees in most of those regions. Up north, we're seeing 6 degrees in Churchill, and the rest of the regions, we're seeing 14 and 13 degrees. But overall, it's going to be a mild day today, a mix of sun and clouds, and highs close to 19 degrees in most of the regions. Winnipeg right now, 17 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It was just positively hot over the weekend. So Abby's right. It's going to change a little bit today. But Corey Funk, you take advantage of all of the, what was really like sweaty, humid.
Yeah.
It was like beach weather.
We were out actually at Grand Beach.
Oh, you did?
Over
Good.
the weekend, and we did take full advantage for sure. We went out hiking, and we're of course down at the beach with the kiddos, and it was lovely.
At the beginning of the long weekend on Friday night, I sat out late, and I haven't done that in a while, and I just found it was so still. Like it was still warm at like 10 o'clock at night out there.
I know.
Which for me is really late.
You got to soak
But
it up
yeah.
because it's cold nights are going to be the norm soon.
Yeah, they're coming. So the nice thing about this time of year is the darkness comes earlier, and I'm saying that's nice for a reason, because then if you are sitting out, with maybe some lights on, or you want to go for an evening walk, you can really kind of enjoy that, nighttime feeling.
And it helps get your toddler to bed too. Very much. Yeah.
Sleep's going to be a thing this week, I tell you, back to
Yes.
school. Okay, let's get into this. I guess we should mention that at the top of traffic. The speed zones are changed.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So 30 kilometers an hour now. It starts today, even though maybe a lot of school students aren't actually heading to school today. It's September. So now September, 30 kilometers an hour in school zones. So look out for that. That is now in effect. But other than that, haven't heard of any major issues out there yet. I'm sure there's going to be a few teachers driving in today. But if you see anything going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as Heather mentioned, let's take you now to the funeral, memorial that happened yesterday. The family of deceased Norwegian trekker, Stefan Skovik, are in Manitoba to grieve and retrace his last steps. He died last month just outside of York Factory in our province, and he planned to make his way on foot to Alaska. Didn't make it. His family spent time this week in Fort Severn First Nation, a fly-in community in northwestern Ontario where Skovik began his journey. The community lined up to offer hugs and other condolences. And here in Winnipeg, there was also about 100 people who attended a funeral that was held at Chapel Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery. This all happening yesterday. Schottlevik's sister Henriette spoke at the service, and you'll hear that in a moment. You're also going to hear from from his friend, Steve Pépin, who's a member of Fort Severn First Nation.
Dear all, dear friends, and dear Stefan's Canadian family. I'm Stefan's sister, 3 years younger than him, and I'm speaking on behalf of the family to thank you all from the deepest of our hearts for the love and the support. In the midst of our grief and our despair at home when we understood Stefan was missing, we are still lifted up and forward from all out there who had reached out. My family and I are also deeply touched by the effort made by the search teams of First Nation, and especially Angus Miles. Words cannot describe how grateful we are for all you have done. But in our sorrow, we lean on the fact of how happy Stefan was fulfilling his dream and goal here in Canada. To cross both Canada and Alaska and to pursue his goal of living close on Mother Earth. On the way, he met the people of Canada and fell in love for the ways of living here, together with the First Nation. The respect and love for the nature and the humbleness in how to deal with the greatness of Mother Earth must have been giving Stefan so much answers and meaning. He searched, like the rest of us, for the deeper meaning of life. From the age of 16, Stefan decided to explore the adventure and beauty of nature. His love for people and animals and his curiosity of human mind beware his guide in life. Then he met his second biggest love, Togo, the majestic Malamute that accompanied him on this last tour. Togo and Stefan will for always be a touching example of the bond that can be built between beautiful minds. Togo lost his best friend, but we rest in the comfort of knowing he will be taken good care of here in Canada. Even though Stefan knew about the risks, nothing could stop him. To have that passion and to let it lead you should be an example to follow for all of us. We know Stefan lived his life to the fullest. He told us to grieve for a while when we talked about the potential of him going away. But he told us to move on, knowing he lives the life he wanted. We will try our best, Stefan, but we miss you more than we can out into words.
When I first met Stefan, I was going off of lunch. He was lurking around a police station, like, I don't know, looked like he wanted to break in or something. And I went to go introduce myself to him. And turns out that they were looking for his credentials to make sure everything was good. One evening we were sitting around watching the satire comedy Norseman. And he explained to me about what it means to be a Norseman. It's not about challenging what's in front of you, it's just about challenging yourself and to become a better version of yourself every day. And now I know what he meant by that. He was a true Norseman.
Sentiments yesterday from a friend, Steve Pépin, a member of the Fort Severn First Nation, a friend of the Norwegian trekker who died here in Manitoba. As we mentioned, there was a funeral at about 100 people attending that service at Chapel Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery yesterday here in Winnipeg. So in addition to Steve Pépin, who was a friend of Stefan Schottlevic, we also heard from his sister there, Henrietta Schottlevic, also in Winnipeg. If you want to see some photos and hear more of the memories of the Norseman, as he put it, you can check our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We're just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
Time right now, 6:21 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being here. 17 degrees is our temperature this morning in Winnipeg. And we're expecting, maybe some showers this afternoon, just a 30% chance. Our high's only 18, so as warm as it is now, it's not going to move much. And a special good morning if you're going back to school in the Western School Division of the big list of different divisions across Manitoba. Mostly teachers and admin are back to this morning, but today students will be back in the Western School Division. So we hope you have a wonderful first day back. Well, listen, some of you are still thinking about summer and the memories that were, and you're writing into our Facebook page, and we continue to ask for calls about your highlights of your summer 2025, 788-3205. Ken Kuhn writing in, I went to Miami on a cruise, and then he put LOL, Miami, Manitoba, that is, but also a scenic cruise in Kenora. We also have folks writing in about just some simple memories that are lovely, right? Ainsley Cunningham saying, I went for lunch with a fellow I worked with in the 80s at A&A Record and Tapes in St. Vital. I hadn't seen each other in over 40 years, and I loved working with him. And we had lots of laughs back then. I knew nothing about music as we were working there. And then some beautiful images of Manitoba on my thread in Facebook this morning as well. Gloria Duick saying Hecla Island, just beautiful imagery of deer and grass and all the wildlife up that way. Well, maybe you were out and about visiting, not just here, but maybe in other parts of Canada. Today is the final day for the Canada Strong Pass. The federal government introduced it just before the start of the summer as a reflection of the elbows up sentiment across the country and to help boost domestic tourism. Now, among other things, the pass meant that national parks were free all summer. Some campgrounds and museums offered discounts, and then kids under 17 could travel for free on Via Rail, something that many took advantage of. But how many? To review the effectiveness of the Canada Strong Pass, I spoke at 6 o'clock with Evacuee. He's the Manager of Economic Research at the Deas Toronto Metropolitan University.
Good morning, Marcy. Happy to do this, even though I'm not ready for summer to be over yet.
Oh, I know, right? You hate even talking about it, but here we are, post-Labor Day. So when you first heard about this Canada Strong Pass, what was your take on it?
It's interesting, right? Because I actually have first-hand experience with a very similar policy. I became a Canadian citizen in 2022, and there's a program called Canoe that gives new Canadians 1 free year of access to national parks, as well as a lot of museums and galleries across Canada. And I remember making full use of that benefit and becoming really proud that I'm Canadian. So I did think that Canada Strong Pass was going to be the same, but was a little sad to see that its offers on museums and galleries were not as extensive. But I definitely saw it as a nice gesture to Canadians at the height of the tension between the US and Canada.
Is there a way now to gauge how effective it actually was regarding, it was meant to be a driver of domestic tourism? Did it succeed? Can we judge that?
I mean, from an economic perspective, it will be really difficult to isolate the effects of the pass itself. And even if we can, my guess is any impact that we see is likely marginal for domestic tourism. The first reason for why I say that is that you probably don't decide your vacation destination based just on free museums or national parks. The pass is a nice bonus, but not decisive. The second reason is that travel was already really difficult this year. From the Air Canada strikes to forest fires, folks in Manitoba know that really well, to economic uncertainties and US sentiment, people are already taking fewer international and US-based vacation, and travel in Canada was difficult. So while I'm glad that museums, for example, are reporting a 15% increase in visits, I doubt that Canada Strong Pass would have convinced a lot more people to travel.
Where they did travel, there are some stories of national parks in this summer where it at least seemed to be adding to the success. They said they had, such a successful year, they couldn't handle all of the people flocking there. What's the takeaway from that? We heard some of that during COVID too here in Manitoba.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is where a policy like this is going to have very different impacts depending on where you are. So there is an inequality here. because the pass didn't add any new capacity to these parks, right? Even before this pass, some of the popular national parks around Canada, people were not able to get camping spots or parking space. For example, here in Ontario, I remember having to line up in a car in Bruce Peninsula at 6 a.m. in the morning, long before the park opened, just to secure a parking spot for the day. But for local residents, for example, in Winnipeg visiting Human Rights Museum, where museums were already operating below capacity, it was a great and valuable opportunity to discover your own city. But in these cases, those kinds of visits probably didn't lead to any additional economic impact.
You already mentioned, what was happening politically. So there were possibly some politics involved in creating the Canada Strong Pass. It was in the middle of, as you said, elbows up. And when Canadians, were choosing not to visit the States as much and may continue to do so. What do you make of the pass as a political move made by the new government?
I mean, I think this is where that true intent and purpose of this policy should be discussed. It was likely a pretty cheap program that didn't cost a ton of money or planning time to announce it. And Canadians, when visiting those eligible museums and national parks, perhaps taking the VIA train, would be reminded about the Canada Strong Pass. So in behavioral economics, we have this notion of salience, or how obvious a policy is having as much of an impact as the policy itself. So if all could have gone well, it might have invoked this real sense of pride in the country. But this is where I again come back to that unevenness of the distribution. If you're stuck not being able to enter Banff or Bruce Peninsula, you might become quite frustrated because it induced all of these additional travels from your city dwellers to these national parks. But if you are visiting your local national park or slightly less popular national park, you're likely going to feel really nice about that fact.
I guess lastly, what do you think they're going to do next, or what we're going to see next? Do you think we'll see further, to expect further along this line of policies aimed at boosting the national economy? Do you think that the feds are going to go in this direction again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the federal government will likely be playing it a little bit more carefully. And that's because the downside of shoring up sort of nationalistic sentiments with policies like this is that it makes justifying some of the more recent policy decisions, like dropping the retaliatory tariffs to advance negotiations with the US, more difficult, because a lot of people will interpret that as an elbows down move, if you will. At the same time, the Carney government needs to show up that sense of national pride, to have the public mandate to make policies that may hurt Canadians temporarily in a trade war with the US. As an economist, I do hope that these flashy programs remain cheap, as it is currently, and doesn't distract away from real and pragmatic economic policy that helps grow Canada. If we want Canadians to visit Canadian parks and tourism sites, let's invest properly in them and build up capacity, not just stopping at giving people nice gestures.
Thanks very much for your thoughtful insight on this. Really appreciate having you with us on the show early on this Tuesday morning. Still summer, Viet, don't worry.
I know, 20-ish days left.
Take care. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye. As Viet Vu, manager of economic research at Toronto Metropolitan University. I spoke with him at 6:00 about summertime ending in the Canada Strong Pass. Did you take advantage of it? Give us a call. Let us know if you used it. Really curious about that after what Viet had to say. 788-3205. If you did, where'd you go? Stay tuned. We have business news straight ahead. Right now, though, first, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 17 degrees. We'll be feeling cool in Winnipeg for the rest of this week. Gone is the summer heat. We are now slipping cooler than seasonal. A high today of just 18 with a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Slight chance of showers. Some people in eastern Afghanistan may only be alive today because they were awake late Sunday when an earthquake hit. Abdul Farid Ahmad is a former Afghan journalist now living in Winnipeg. He says for some people he's heard from, survival hinged on being awake.
People could make out of the house, they're safe. The people who couldn't, who were sleeping, they have been died.
It is now more than 24 hours since that earthquake hit. A humanitarian group says getting to the affected area is still a challenge. The Afghan Red Crescent Society says more than 1,100 people have been killed. More than 8,000 houses have been destroyed, and the search for survivors is ongoing. Back in Winnipeg, Ahman says one friend feels lucky his family was still awake when the earthquake hit, while 3 of his loved ones were seriously hurt. Everyone else survived. Another neighbor of his says 11 of his family members died. Sudan's Darfur region, already in the grips of civil war, is now dealing with a devastating landslide. The rebel group controlling the hardest hit area says at least one remote village has been completely wiped out, with an estimated 1,000 people believed to have been killed. Antoine Girard is the UN's Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator for Sudan.
We do not have helicopters, so everything is on cars in the very bumpy roads. It takes time, and it is the rainy season, so some of the time we have to wait a couple of hours, maybe sometime a day or two, to cross a wadi, a valley with water.
Girard says this area of Darfur has been hosting thousands of displaced people forced to flee the ongoing fighting to the north. You can hear the latest on these stories as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Therapists in Winnipeg have started using artificial intelligence to listen in on and transcribe their sessions. An AI-powered note-taking tool helps summarize and complete patient documentation. Gavin Patterson is the director of Wildwood Wellness Therapy, a practice in Osborne Village. He has been using the program Clinical Notes AI for nearly a year and says it is improving care for his patients.
It helps me focus more on the content in the session. So when I'm working with clients one-on-one, I'm able to free myself of writing down everything and be fully present in the conversation.
That said, there are privacy concerns. While the program Patterson uses does not record or store data from sessions, other programs do store that data until the clinician decides to delete it permanently. People in a North Winnipeg trailer park say their community is the target of vandalism and intimidation. Mailboxes at the River Grove mobile home estates were spray painted with the words trailer trash earlier this summer. Weeks later, the trailer park's owner received an anonymous letter telling residents to stay away from the neighborhood of River Grove Drive, just south of the trailer park. Joan Warman has been living in the trailer park for 5 years.
You're hurting people's feelings is what you're doing, but I'm rolling it off because you know what? It's not everybody that's that way. It's a select few, which I would love to know who they are so that they could come in here and just see what this community is like.
At least one River Grove resident tells CBC there have been issues with trailer park residents not cleaning up after their pets. It remains unclear who is behind the vandalism or the letter. Well, they came from communities in northern Manitoba and Ontario to honor Norwegian hiker Stefan Skovik. The 29-year-old was found a week ago on the banks of the Hayes River. He drowned just a few kilometers from his goal of reaching York Factory in Manitoba after leaving northern Ontario by foot. Yesterday, more than 100 people gathered for Schotelvik's funeral in Winnipeg. His sister Henriette spoke about her brother's sense of adventure.
Even though Stefan knew about the risks, nothing could stop him. To have that passion and to let it lead you should be an example to follow for all of us.
Skovik was also hailed for the impact he had on First Nations communities during his time in Canada. Many say Skovik embraced Indigenous culture with respect and openness. Well, you can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
We talked about the long weekend and how warm it was. Today, we do take that turn into a different season. And I don't mind that, Abby. You know, it's post-Labor Day. People are thinking about school. Administrators back today in most of the regions.
Yeah, and it's going to be more like a cooler and cloudier one. So I don't think a lot of people will be in this sweaty mode, but more like a cool ease into the school season. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 17 degrees, partly cloudy outside. We should expect more clouds to roll in this morning. We do have a slim chance of showers in the forecast. And then once that system moves away, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon period. Winds will shift from the north and it's going to be mild all through the day. Temperatures will only get to around 18 degrees for today. In the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Altoona, Morris, we're all seeing temperatures just hovering between 14 and 16 degrees this morning into the Ontario border as well. Temperatures for those areas will get to 19 degrees. In the Westman region, Brandon all the way down to Surrey and surrounding regions, we're seeing temperatures around 16 at this time. The high for today will get to 19 degrees. There's also a slim chance of showers in the forecast. Mild breeze coming from the north for that part of the province. Tracking conditions in the Parkland region right now, talking about Dauphin, Russell, Roblin all the way down to the Riding Mountain Park area. We're looking at temperatures around 13 degrees. We saw some light showers earlier in that part of the province. Now it's cloudy. Expect more of these cloudy conditions and some showers might still come your way later. Then it will transition to a mix of sun and clouds. Winds will be coming from the north, becoming mild as you get into the afternoon. Highs will only be around 18 degrees as well for that part of the province. Good morning to our friends in Gimli. Looking at conditions in the Interlake region right now, 16 degrees. That's what we're tracking. Cloudy conditions will get there and more clouds will roll in. A slim chance of showers also in the forecast this morning. Once the system moves out, you see a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon period. Winds will be coming from the north, also mild, and then switch to breezy. At some point, highs will be around 17 for Gimli. We're already seeing that 17 in some areas in Gimli. So that's where your temperature will stay for the rest of the day. And then there's going to be some showers later in the evening. In the northern part of the province, the powerful influence surrounding areas, we're looking at 7-8 degrees there. Temperatures will only be getting to 14 degrees there. Thompson, we have light rain, 8 degrees in Thompson at this time. We're expecting 10 to 15 millimeters of water on the ground once the system goes, and your temperature only drops to 5. So no highs for Thompson, you're dropping to 5 degrees. In Churchill, 6 degrees, mostly cloudy also. Expect a mix of sun and clouds. Today, you warm up to 9 degrees. A slim chance of showers also in the forecast. So, Marissa, it's more like cooler conditions and cloudier temperature skies. That's what we see across board today. Winnipeg right now, 17 degrees.
Suits all those fall clothes for back to school, I tell you.
That's true.
You're still hanging on to summer
I'm
with
still
your palm
hanging on
tree
because
shirt.
I see a transition somewhere this weekend again. some warm temperatures coming. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm expecting that. But this week, we'll enjoy some cool conditions.
All right, let's get into the commute. Thank you, Abby. Corey Funk is in studio with some detail. Hello.
I'm also marking the last day of the roads being relatively chill, I think, because school, of course, starts tomorrow. Students getting back, so it's
For
going
a
to
lot
start
of
getting
divisions,
busy.
yep.
Exactly, and that does mean though that starting today, school zones are at 30 kilometers an hour. So that's my one reminder to you that slow down those school zones because that does starts as of the 1st. So heads up there. Other than that, haven't seen any major issues. But if you do see something going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
All right, it's time for business news with Hallie Cottenham, who's with us for the next little while, filling in for Christelle Ramlichan. Good morning, Hallie.
Hi, Marcy. Oh, just hearing you guys talk about the weather and back to school reminds me of one of the biggest social disasters of my life. I had bought back to school clothes, fall clothes, corduroys and sweaters and such. And I wore them to school on the first day of, I think it was grade 7.
What province were you in? I need to know
I was
that.
in Ontario.
In Ontario, okay.
And it was like 30 degrees that day, right? But I had to wear my fall clothes because it was back to school. And let me just say this, I sweated. And I was sort of like, a new, anyway, it's really made an impact on me. And as you were describing that, I'm like, oh, please, kids, take a look at the forecast before you dress for school.
I know, but if you buy the outfit, if you're lucky enough to have a new outfit for back to school, right? And usually it's going to be fall, like it's going to be fall, right? So if it's 30, it ruins your party.
It does.
And you can just sweat it out, which is what you did.
Yeah.
Let's talk about business news. A major summit's just wrapped in China, Hallie, with potentially big implications, right?
Yeah, this was the annual Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. More than 20 leaders of non-Western countries were at it, and it brought together all the heavy hitters. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Chinese President Xi Jinping, together on Chinese soil for the first time in 7 years. So just picture this, the leaders of the world's two most populous nations representing 2.8 billion people pledging to step up cooperation and committing to resolving some longstanding border conflicts. And analysts are saying that U.S. President Donald Trump can take credit for unintentionally breathing new life into this summit. For decades, the U.S. has tried to frame sort of India as an ally to counter Chinese influence in Asia, but after it posed punishing tariffs, most recently, Marcy, up to 50%, India is turning to China. The summit also came out with these really startling images and video of Xi and Modi and Putin holding hands together, sharing a laugh. So the symbolism of these three leaders together, projecting China as an alternative to the U.S. Putin called Modi his, quote, dear friend, and described their relations as friendly and trusting. And yesterday, Modi posted a photo of himself with Putin inside the Russian leader's armored limousine. So some analysts are describing this gathering as a, quote, defiant show of solidarity, one that sets the stage for a collision course with Trump, according to a CEO of a major Asian bank. And this morning, Marcy, the price of gold has hit a new record. Gold, some people say, as a haven for investors in times of uncertainty. And at one point this morning, it reached $3,571.50 per ounce, a new record.
Let's go to another story. This one is about a bittersweet love affair that's rocking the business world.
Yes, the Swiss conglomerate Nestle has fired its CEO, effective immediately, for failing to disclose a romantic relationship with a subordinate. An investigation was launched after a tip came in through an internal company hotline. So the CEO, Laurent Frechet, denied any such relationship, but the rumors persisted. And then a second investigation was launched, this time with an outside private investigator who confirmed the relationship. This is a breach of the company's code of conduct, not the affair itself, but the fact that it was undeclared. So now the 63-year-old Frechet out after 40 years with Nestle, no severance package. Bitter note for Nestle, makers of Kit Kat and Haagen-Dazs. Its shares down almost 20%, not due to the affair, 20% over the past year, but because of tariff uncertainty and such. And Marcy, not the first CEO whose career has been sidelined by love. You'll recall back in July, that astronomer CEO resigned after being caught on camera embracing a staffer at the Coldplay concert. And speaking of misbehavior being caught on camera over the weekend, how about that Polish CEO who snatched the sweaty ball cap from a young fan who'd been handed it from a player at the U.S. Open? Peter Cezarek posted an apology on social just yesterday, but only after that video of him sort of stealing the hat from the kid went viral.
Who does that?
Who does that?
Okay. We were talking about back to school. Now in Manitoba, mostly administrators today. Western School Division students are back. Winnipeg School Division, the city's largest here, at least go tomorrow with the students. But there's a cautionary tale for computer science majors, I understand.
Yeah, Silicon Valley is pulling back on entry-level hiring, in part because some of the work that new grads might have been assigned is being now handled by AI. So computer science majors are now more likely to be jobless than most other majors. This is according to fresh data from the New York Federal Reserve. Computer science grads, an unemployment rate of 6.1%. Computer engineering majors, an unemployment rate of 7.5%. And this is compared to an overall average of all majors of just 3.6%. And Marcy, this is at a time when more and more people are studying this, competing for fewer jobs. So the Computing Research Association says the number of people studying computer science has more than doubled from 2014 to 2024. There is a silver lining, though. It's not all doom and gloom. Comp sci grads who do get hired get well paid, an average of $80,000 US. Meanwhile, Canada's technology job market has also cooled off, according to a study out last week. Indeed says postings are down 19% from early 2020. A senior economist at Indeed is describing it as a virtual hiring freeze.
Hallie, thanks for this morning.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Hallie Cotnam. If you want the latest number, cbc.ca/business. Hallie is filling in for Crystal for the next number of weeks. Well, we were just talking about back to school. September is here, long weekend behind us. For many today, even though technically summer's not over for something like 20 days, for a lot of people, today does mark the unofficial end of summer. So with that in mind, CBC's Gavin Axelrod headed over to the Forks in Winnipeg this weekend and asked some people how they spent summer 2025.
So I just retired from the military. I purchased a van and drove it across the country to Halifax and back, so that's how I spent my summer.
How was that?
It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I got to see so many great people. Generally when you're serving the military, you're away from home so long, so this was a nice way to reconnect with family and friends. Yeah.
So when September rolls around, what are your plans for?
Well, I'm going to enjoy the Labor Day class. Well, the Banjo Bowl, of course. But other than that, no, I think I'll just be walking dogs and enjoying retirement.
How are you feeling about the summer kind of coming to an end?
I'm fully I'm fully in denial, and yeah, just enjoying the last few days of sunshine and warm weather as much as we can, and take advantage to the full degree. So.
How do you feel like did you feel like summer flew by, or?
It always goes by too fast. But we're also planning some trips down south to escape the Manitoba winters, just to break it up a little bit. So that's always nice. But also looking forward to things kind of calming down a little bit as well too. So that's always nice for the fall season and getting into a little bit of hibernation mode. So
I just want to know how you guys are spending kind of the last bits of August here today.
Well, today we just went to the Forks. Friends came from Germany, and I just came back from Germany. So I thought, well, let's go to the Forks. Let's go on the river, have a nice little river tour, but it was really interesting. Guys did a great job. And tomorrow we haven't quite decided yet if we want to go to the zoo tomorrow and see the polar bears. They want to scratch the polar bears. A little tickling.
So tomorrow's the holiday. I guess Tuesday is is it back to normal for you on Tuesday when September rolls around?
I'm retired. For me, every day is normal, right? Yeah. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who are going to be going back to work this week after summer holidays?
Tough luck. Best luck to you, right? Yeah. But no, I mean, we all have to start one way or another after our holiday, right? Everything comes to an end, and that's it, Yeah, so no, we enjoyed it, and it's nice to get friends over and show them around Winnipeg and Manitoba.
When's back to school?
She's back to school September 5th.
So a couple days from now.
In a couple of days, yeah.
How would you say your summer's been?
It's been good. It's been like a roller coaster ride. It's pretty fast. I feel like it's winter and then boom, it's summer and then it's over.
What grade is she going into?
She's going into grade 1.
Oh, what's that like for you as a parent?
We feel like we're overwhelmed because obviously she's growing up so fast. Yeah.
How are your kids feeling about going back to school?
She's excited.
Did you use a couple more weeks or what?
Yes, please.
CBC's Gavin Axelrod out in Winnipeg over the long weekend at the Forks talking to people about back to school this week, end of summer, unofficially. I know it's not official yet. We also asked you on Facebook to weigh in. We've got a lot of comments and some really thoughtful comments because we had such a devastating year with fire as well. So I'm going to share some of those coming up on the program a little bit later, but I want to invite you to our listener line at 788-3205 if you want to weigh in on your highlight of summer 2025. And because we're on the other side of the long weekend, maybe something you're looking forward to this fall. 788-3205.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
So we find ourselves with no, we don't. We have our next guest. I was going to share those fire comments now, but live radio, folks, sit tight. We'll do that after 7 o'clock. Right now, it is 11 minutes to 7 o'clock, and it is 17 degrees in the city. We're not going to move much. 18 is our high in Winnipeg. Increasing cloud, 30% chance we might see some showers. Where it is going to be wet is up in Thompson. 10 to 15 millimeters of rain expected on a cloudy day. Your temperature will fall to 5 this afternoon. It's going to be also chilly. Brandon, increasing cloud this morning, but it should clear for you this afternoon with a high of 19. Well, let's get to federal politics. That is what our next guest is here to talk about. The race is now on for a new leader for the federal NDP. The official campaign launches today. April's federal election saw the worst result in the party's history. And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh resigned on election night. Now, Don Davies is interim leader until the party chooses a permanent replacement. And to talk about the race, Alex Ballingall is with us, as he is most Tuesdays, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So what's the timeline of this race?
So March 29th is kind of the big day that people should, NDP fans and people that are interested in this should circle on the calendar. That's when the new leader will be announced and unveiled. And, basically between now and then, we've got, pretty traditional leadership race. There's a $100,000 entry fee that the candidates will have to kind of pay in stages. A couple leadership debates, I assume one in French, one in English. There's going to be a candidate forum that they're calling, which I guess is sort of like a showcase of whoever's running. And then people vote. And then, March 29th, there's a new leader who has to, step in and pick up the pieces of as you say, with, pretty disastrous drubbing result that they posted in April. So, tall order for whoever takes over, but that's the situation. March 29th is when we'll know who the next leader of the NDP is.
Who are the candidates in the race already?
So, today is the first day that the door is opening for people to jump in. So no one's like official yet, but there are some people that we know, largely through reporting from my colleague Mark Ramsey here at the Star, are considering or intending to run. So one of them is Heather McPherson. She's one of the few MPs who managed to keep her seat. Her seat's in Edmonton. She's been the party's foreign affairs critic for a number of years. She's seen as sort of a strong performer in the House. She's been sort of a prominent New Democrat for a number of years on the federal level, and she's looking to run. Another person who's apparently intending to get in the race, Avi Lewis. He has run a couple times unsuccessfully for a seat in BC. He has an interesting kind of NDP family history. His grandfather was federal NDP leader in the 70s. His father, many years ago, was the Ontario NDP leader. So he's looking to get in the mix as federal NDP leader, which could be interesting. He kind of comes at it from, he's has a passion sort of climate activism. And then, kind of marrying climate activism with strong social democratic policies is kind of his take. But those are kind of, I'm sure there'll be more names coming out, but those are the ones that appear to be seriously intending to get into this thing.
You mentioned some of the intentions already that we know of those who seem interested there. But what about within the party? There's tensions, I understand, around what the priorities should be for the federal NDP and where it needs to focus, right?
For sure. I mean, after this huge defeat, I think it's probably normal that there will be massive questions about and soul searching within this political family about, what they represent, what is the way forward, how do they recover? And so I think this leadership race will probably largely be about that, big questions about, what went wrong? What are they doing wrong? They lost, a lot of the analysis after the elections that they're losing kind of the traditional, what people think of as traditional NDP voters, union workers, blue collar workers, to the Conservatives. They lost seats to the Liberals as well. So, big questions about, is the party, what is its natural constituency and how does it speak to those people? Is it those blue collar workers and, smaller towns with mines and paper mills and whatever, kind of traditional union workers, or is it urban progressives and in the center of major cities? Is there a way to kind of marry those two constituencies? What type of rhetoric do they need to do that? What type of kind of political style? What type of policies? Even what is the place of a social democratic movement in today's federal politics? Are they content with having 15 to 30 seats and hopefully influencing a minority government? Or is there a way for them to stay true to themselves while achieving power for the first time ever at the federal level? Is that a realistic goal that they should somehow strive for? And if so, what does that mean in terms of broadening the tent, compromising maybe core principles that some of their base might not like? There's a lot of massive questions about the way forward for the NDP. And I think this leadership race, if it's a good leadership race with a lot of kind of overt debate about that will be very interesting.
When's the last time they were in this tough, and what are some of the other challenges for the next leader, you think?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest one is, I think whoever wins this leadership race will have to present kind of the recipe for the quickest and strongest return possible. And the last time they were kind of on the ropes like this was probably 1993, at least at the federal level, when they went down to something like 8 seats. They lost official party status. And it took quite a long time, several election cycles, and probably not until maybe Jack Layton's second and especially third election as leader, to really kind of be in a power position, or a position where they're really a player in the political scene and competitive. So that's, 15, 20 years we're talking about, or, well over a decade. So I think the next leader will have to, the big challenge will be, is the rebuild from this disaster, could it take that long again? Or is there a way for the next leader to stage a comeback to relevance and competitiveness that doesn't take, 3, 4, 5, 6 election cycles, but maybe takes 1 or 2, where they're back in sort of an influential position where they have a number of seats and they're able to influence debate and policies in the House of Commons.
All right, Alex, thank you for your analysis today. Appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. That's
Alex Ballingo, who's the Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, talking about the race now officially being on, the campaign launching today for the new leader of the federal NDP. So we'll see who officially does put their hat in the ring now. It is coming up to 3 minutes to 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning, September 2nd. Good morning, teachers and administrators and educators. I know you're all making your way into school and getting ready with your fresh books and your plans and meetings. Good luck today. Enjoy the day. We'll get a bit into your forecast in a moment, but right now let's get headlines from Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a North Winnipeg trailer park has been the target of vandalism and anonymous threats through this summer. People in River Grove Mobile Home Estate say their mailboxes were spray painted with the words trailer trash. A sign was later posted in a field telling residents to stay away from River Grove Drive, a neighborhood just south of the trailer park. We'll hear what's been going on there. And therapists in Winnipeg have started using artificial intelligence as a way to listen in on and transcribe their sessions. An AI-powered note-taking tool helps summarize and complete patient documentation. However, there are privacy concerns. Your next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
In the forecast, as mentioned, we're at 17 already. We're only going to 18, and then increasing cloud and a 30% chance of showers this morning. This afternoon, we might see a little bit of sun peek out. Really cloudy to start here, though, in the downtown area. In traffic, just a reminder, in school zones, you're going 30. Slow down, and you're also going to see people in those zones today for the first time. As I mentioned, educators going back today. And so 788-3093 is where you want to call if you see any other problems in traffic. You can update Corey and we'll pass it along. Coming up in the next hour of Information Radio, we are going to have more on that story Heather mentioned about that ongoing conflict between those two neighborhoods just up North Main. In addition, what happens when you give a monkey a flower? We are going to learn more about a volunteer-run garden that's growing food and fun for animals at our local zoo. And then on our on our faith column, right after 7 o'clock, many religions still oppose medical assistance in dying, or MAID, but some churches have actually embraced it, even going as far as to allow one person to die in their place of worship in Winnipeg. We'll revisit that story and more when our faith contributor is here to talk about it. So that's coming up after 7 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being with all of us here. Our team on the show this morning, Corey Funk, Abby Adeyemi, and Brad Lillies, as well as Heather Wells in our news center. And we hope you are still with us after World Report. That's coming up next. It's 1 minute to 7.
It's Canada's most prestigious competition for new short fiction. The 2026 CBC Short Story Prize is on. Send in your best original unpublished short fiction. Up for grabs, cash prizes from the Canada Council for the Arts, a 2-week writing residency at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, and your work published on CBC Books. Contest closes November 1st. For rules and more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
It is now more than 24 hours since an earthquake hit a remote part of Afghanistan. The Taliban says more than 1,400 people have been killed. More than 5,000 houses have been destroyed in the disaster. And the search for survivors is slow going. Anna Cunningham reports.
The birds of Taliban military helicopters as rescuers work through the night, navigating the rugged mountainous terrain where the mud and stone homes built on steep valleys concertinaed into one another. They stood no match against a shallow 6-magnitude quake. The worst-hit area was eastern Kunar province. Helicopters have also been delivering bodies back to the villages. Those who did not survive, despite being taken to hospital in Jalalabad, returned for burial. 16-year-old Shahidullah was rescued. As a doctor treats his wounds, he says it happened suddenly. Everything collapsed on us, he says. His mother did not survive. In the fields in Kunar, medics hook the injured up to IV drips. It is feared many people remain trapped under the debris, numbers unknown. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Afghan communities face unimaginable hardship and Canada is ready to provide humanitarian support through partners. But Western nations want to ensure any funds do not get into Taliban hands. Afghanistan was already suffering in a severe economic crisis after the withdrawal of international aid 4 years ago when the Taliban retook power. This latest disaster will stretch the Taliban administration's resources in a country that has endured 4 decades of war. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
In Sudan's Darfur region, it is disaster on top of displacement and disease. A landslide has completely wiped out the village of Tarasin. At least 1,000 people are believed to have been killed. For 2 years, the region has been engulfed in civil war.
And this is right in the middle of the conflict and the rainy season and a cholera outbreak.
Antoine Gerard is the UN Sudan Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator. He told the BBC the war and the terrain make it almost impossible to access this mountainous remote region.
We do not have helicopters. So everything is on cars in the very bumpy roads. It takes time, and it is the rainy season. So some of the time we have to wait a couple of hours, maybe sometime a day or two, to cross a wadi, a valley with water.
He says this part of Darfur has been hosting internally displaced people who fled the fighting farther north. Structural firefighters are standing by in case of an out-of-control wildfire reaching Fort Providence. Northwest Territories Fire says the flames came within 900 meters of the community yesterday, but fuel breaks have been built and crews are trying to keep the area damp. Juanita Taylor has more on the work being done to try to protect homes.
These cats are working here. They're tight-lining the fire.
Danny Bolio is working to strengthen the fire break on the outskirts of Fort Providence. He is also the mayor, protecting his community from the raging wildfire.
They have hoses laid all over the town, sprinklers up on the houses, especially the houses, what we call the back street, along the tree line.
The wildfire is pushing towards town. Some essential workers were ordered out Monday, a day after residents began to flee to Hay River, 180 kilometers away. Evacuee Ruby Minoza is worried.
Am I going to go home? Is my house still going to be standing up when I get home? Or my grandkids are going to have a house to go home to?
The wildfire is one of dozens burning in the Northwest Territories. Premier R.J. Simpson wants more federal support.
Small jurisdiction, and we can only handle so much. We only have so much capacity. But with the world the way it is, with climate change and the frequency and severity of these disasters, it's tough. We're stretched.
Simpson says the territory has reached out to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre for more crews and aircraft to fight this fire. Come midweek, winds are expected to pick up again towards Fort Providence. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Hay River, Northwest Territories.
Russia and China are holding bilateral talks in Beijing. Russian President Vladimir Putin praising his country's close relations with China. He is meeting with his counterpart Xi Jinping as China prepares to host its largest military parade ever. It will mark the 80th anniversary of the surrender of the Japanese in China during the Second World War. Both Putin and Xi are trying to shore up their trade relations while projecting their military might on the international stage. The trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro enters a critical phase today. A Supreme Court panel will meet 5 times between now and next Friday. They'll decide whether Bolsonaro is guilty of trying to overturn Brazil's 2022 presidential election results. The far-right politician has been charged with attempting a coup. That alone carries a sentence of up to 12 years. Bolsonaro also faces 4 other related charges. He denies any wrongdoing. If you're looking for a deep dive into this story, check out today's episode of Front Burner, wherever you get your podcasts. A Canadian veteran says the country's armed forces betrayed his former colleagues in Afghanistan. The retired legal officer says it has been 4 years since they applied to come to Canada. It was part of a special program for Afghan nationals who helped the Canadian government and military. But that pathway closed in 2022, and now this veteran is just one of many calling on Ottawa to make things right. Priscilla Kisong-Huang reports.
It's been nothing short of deplorable and, quite honestly, shameful.
Retired Major Corey Moore says Canada betrayed his 12 Afghan colleagues who worked shoulder to shoulder with him during his mission. His group includes military prosecutors, security staff, a doctor, and a journalist. They're still hiding from the Taliban. Moore first spoke to CBC 3 years ago. He helped his Afghan peers to apply under the special stream. After countless follow-ups and contacting hundreds of MPs, he says there's been 0 updates from both immigration and national defense.
It's really quite appalling. For a program that was designed to safeguard the lives of those who are now in peril, and for them to be completely ignored by this government.
This July, a federal court judge found gross governmental negligence and failures in that program. Toronto lawyer Maureen Silkoff represents an Afghan client who was ignored under that pathway. They won the court case, and his application is now being processed.
It's groundbreaking.
Silkoff and Moore are now calling on the feds to reassess others.
My hope is that the Canadian government would think seriously about what it could do proactively.
National Defence did not comment on Moore's former colleagues. In a statement, the Immigration Ministry also declined, citing privacy, but added that Afghans not part of the special measures can apply through regular immigration pathways. Priscilla Kisong-Huang, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Buy Canadian movement is still going strong, especially in the grocery aisles. Many retailers are marking Made in Canada products. But now the country's food regulator says it's found cases of grocers mislabeling items as Canadian. It has issued no fines, and as Sophia Harris reports, some shoppers are crying foul.
I'm trying to support the local community, the farmers.
Brenda Nichols of Hamilton is a committed member of the Buy Canadian movement, so she gets upset when she sometimes finds at big grocery stores imported food promoted with Canadian branding, like a red maple leaf.
This is deceptive and misleading advertising.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says it has been flooded with similar complaints about country of origin claims, 160 since January. The food regulator has already identified 12 violations between February and May where grocers promoted imported food with Canadian branding. All but one of the cases involved national grocery chains. No fines were issued, which also upsets Nichols.
The CFIA needs to step up and start levying fines, putting some pressure so that there will be some changes at the grocery store.
At a certain point, you say enough is enough.
Marketing professor Tim Dewhurst says grocers can make mistakes when dealing with large inventory, but he adds repeat offenders should face repercussions.
If there aren't any fines despite repeated violations, it becomes that the regulations have no teeth.
The CFIA says in all of the cases, the grocer fixed the problem. However, there may be more problems to come. The CFIA is still sifting through its many complaints about country of origin claims for food. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio. We're live in our downtown studios in Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Coming up this hour on the program, there is an ongoing conflict between two Winnipegs in North Winnipeg.
The old saying, trailer trash. We're not worthy of anything.
CBC's Jim Agapito breaks down what's happening. That's a resident who lives in one of these neighborhoods up near on North Main, near the perimeter. So stay tuned. We'll have that coming up for you just before 8. Also this hour on the program at 7:40, we're going to be learning about something that's happening over at the zoo. There's a team of volunteer gardeners that are helping to keep animals at the Assiniboine Park Zoo well fed and entertained. So we'll hear all about that. But first, what happens when you choose MAID, but your church doesn't support medical assistance in dying? Our faith contributor has a column today. And that's the topic, so stay tuned for that. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells for your Tuesday morning headlines post-Labor Day. Hi, Heather.
Hi there. Well, Winnipeg's Afghan community is reeling after this weekend's deadly earthquake. The Afghan Red Crescent Society says more than 1,100 people have been killed. Abdul Farid Ahmad is a former Afghan journalist. He now lives in Winnipeg and says for some people he's heard from, survival in this earthquake hinged on being awake when the quake hit. We're going to hear more from him. And they came from communities in northern Manitoba and Ontario to honor Norwegian hiker Stefan Skovik. More than 100 people gathered in Winnipeg for his funeral yesterday, and we'll take you there in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, you might want to pull out the fall clothes, especially if you're in the Western School Division. Good morning, students. You're going back today. All over the place, though, administrators and teachers going back. But today, actually, you're going to have to listen to the forecast and see what kind of outfit might work.
Marcy, it's going to be cooler and cloudier, so
right.
It's more like cool conditions you will be feeling across board today.
Corduroys rejoice?
Yep, kind of. And of course, we're expecting showers in some areas. We already saw showers in the Dauphin area. It's going to be on and off for the rest of the day. It's going to be more like mild conditions in the southern regions, while we see more wet conditions up north. Winnipeg, right now, we're sporting 17 degrees in the city. Partly cloudy skies we're seeing as we move through the morning. The cloud cover will build. There is a slim chance of showers before the noon period, and after that we'll see more like the skies would open up, and then a mix of sun and clouds with temperatures just getting to mild 18 degrees around your lunch break. Heading into the evening, partly cloudy conditions will return, and then a good chance of showers develop overnight. Southern part of the province we're sporting 13 to 17 degrees. Up north we're seeing about 8 to 6 degrees in that part of the province, and showers and a few thunderstorms also possible. But right now, Winnipeg 17, and it's cool outside.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, let's get into the issues with the commute.
Yes, got a call from Tyler on the commuter line. He says there's a stalled car in northbound Keniston and Grant in the left turning lane. So you said you can work around it, but just heads up there. And if it's there for the next little while as traffic picks up, might cause some more issues for folks. But just heads up northbound Keniston and Grant in the left turning lane, stalled car. Other than that, though, reminder, speed zones start today. They go down to 30 kilometers an hour. There very, very well may be someone enforcing those starting today as well. So really want to slow down through school zones. If you see anything else though going on out there, give us a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, this summer, Britain's Parliament voted in favour of a bill to legalise assisted dying. Called the Terminally Ill Adults Law, it gives mentally competent terminally ill adults in England and Wales the right to choose to end their lives with medical help. That probably sounds familiar. Through the vote, Britain does join Canada, but also Australia and other countries and some U.S. states in medical assistance in dying, or what we call here MAID. As happened in Canada, though, when MAID became legal here, many religious groups in Britain opposed the new law. Leaders of the Church of England opposed the bill, as did leaders from evangelical groups, some Jewish groups, along with leaders of Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and Sikh organizations. But polls in that country showed that over 70% of the public supported it. On our religion column today, are church leaders out of step with society on this? To talk about it, our religion contributor, John Longhurst, is in studio. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
So let's go to that question. Are churches out of step with the public when it comes to MAID?
Yes, all major religions are out of step with the public when it comes to that issue. They are all opposed to it, and they all believe that it shouldn't happen. That's true in Great Britain, and it's true in Canada. Their opposition is based on their pro-life doctrines, their traditions, and their readings of their holy scriptures. But the world where those doctrines were created and those scriptures written is very different from the world today, and that includes doctrines about MAID. As you said, over 70% of people in Great Britain support MAID, and that number is as much as 80% here in Canada today. Now, for some religious groups, being out of step with the public on this issue is a badge of honor, being opposed to what they see as a godless and secular culture. But the majority of Canadians aren't on board with them, and that will surely make it hard for them to engage the public on this issue.
Are there some religious groups out there that do support this, or at least they don't actively oppose it?
Yes, that would be among Protestants in particular, because individual Protestant denominations and congregations have more leeway to come up with their own doctrinal decisions. And that's where you find some variation. So, for example, the Anglican Church of Canada does not officially oppose MAID, but it doesn't support it either. Instead, it advocates for resources for people facing death, including palliative care. The United Church of Canada supports MAID in general, but does not support expanding it to people with mental health issues. And the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada also has a more permissive approach to the subject.
So given what you've said, how does religious opposition to MAID impact people who are religious?
Well, for one thing, not all religious people oppose MAID. The Catholic Church in Canada officially opposes it, but an Ipsos poll in 2022 found that 87% of Canadian Catholics support MAID. And while evangelicals are adamantly opposed to it organizationally, 25% of individual evangelicals say they're in favor of it. So for some religious people, the impact is being at odds with their religious groups, and this can create some challenges. For example, what if someone in a group that opposes MAID wants to use it to die? That's when they can experience a big impact, and that's what happened to my friend John, who used MAID to die in 2020. Now, John was a longtime minister in the Mennonite Brethren Church, which opposes MAID. When John was in his early 90s, life had become very difficult, and after a series of falls, including one where he broke his hip, he was in pain and unable to walk and live independently, and that's when he decided he was ready to go. He had had a full life, and he knew it was time. As his son told me, John was exhausted. He said that John had no more projects and didn't want to stay alive for the only purpose of remaining alive. He didn't want to lie in bed for who knows how long, waiting for death to come. But since his denomination doesn't approve of MAID, John had to do it quietly and without the support of the church he had served for so long. So for spiritual support, he asked 2 trusted former pastors to be with him as he died, reading scripture and praying. He couldn't ask his own pastor. When one of those 2 pastors asked him, "John, can anything separate you from the love of Christ?" Then John shook his head emphatically and with a strong voice answered, "No." And then he slipped away. And I tell that story because it happens to other religious people too, who feel that MAID is the right option for them, but they have to do it without the support of their own pastors and churches. And that puts them in a lonely place, apart from the very people they want to have standing with them at their time of greatest need for support. They also have to do it without any formal or official rituals that can honor them and comfort them as they are ushered into the presence of God. In John's case, his pastor friends and family created their own service of scripture, prayers, and songs. And of his death, his son told me that his dad died in dignity, surrounded by the love of people he had invited to his passage. He died in a way that was congruent with his theology, with his experience of a loving God, even if he couldn't say that he had the support of his denomination. I guess what I'm saying is that religious groups may feel they are taking a strong countercultural stand when they oppose MAID, but public opinion surveys show that many of their own members aren't on the same page. This can lead to problems when clergy have members who want them to assist when they use MAID. Those clergy have to decide whether or not to be with their members at that deep time of need or follow official doctrines and rules, and that can put clergy in a very difficult place.
It's complicated. I'm sorry for the loss of your friend as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are there examples of churches or other religious groups that are finding ways to support their members who choose MAID?
Yes, the United Church of Canada offers resources for MAID that its clergy and others can use, and this includes hymns such as We Are Not Alone, and prayers for when someone has chosen MAID, prayers for family and friends so they might understand a dying person's wish for MAID, and a prayer after someone chooses MAID. And that prayer begins, loving God, time and eternity, all life and all death are in your hands. Be very close to me now as I decide the time and place of my own death. And in the Netherlands, where MAID has been legal since 2002, Mennonites there have created a liturgy their clergy can use. They believe that when people choose MAID, clergy should be there with them to give their death meaning and significance. And it isn't only patients who appreciate the presence of clergy. Doctors in that country say they appreciate it too, because they sometimes need spiritual support at a time like that. Now, when no clergy are available or allowed to be with someone choosing MAID, then spiritual care directors at local hospitals here in Winnipeg sometimes step in to lead a service for people who have chosen their time of dying. One spiritual care director told me that people who choose MAID don't do so lightly. It's a big decision, and the last thing they need when that happens is for their clergy to abandon them due to some higher theological principle.
There's a case here in Winnipeg. Didn't someone actually die by MAID inside a United Church in the city?
Yes, that happened in 2022. That's when Betty Sanguin, who had ALS, asked if she could die by MAID in her home church, the Churchill Park United Church. Hers was the first MAID death in Manitoba to occur in a church. The family said it was a beautiful place for her to die due to the positive memories she and their family had of the church, along just with the beauty of the space. On her special day, as she called it, Betty sat in a recliner surrounded by her children. Her favorite music played, her handmade quilts were on display, and her grandchildren sang to her before she slipped away.
What an image that is. Is there middle ground to what we're talking about for religious groups who just cannot support MAID?
You know, that's a good question, and I don't know if there's a middle ground, but maybe these groups who oppose MAID could do a better job of supporting efforts to help people who are sick and dying so that they don't feel MAID is the only option. Maybe they could put just as much effort into promoting what some call MAIL as they do into opposing MAID. And MAIL stands for Mission, Assistance, and Living. It was coined by a former head of the Catholic Health Association here in Manitoba. And in this case, MAIL would be about putting resources into better supports for living. It's not just about easier access to dying. Putting their money where their preaching is, in other words, by financially supporting things like palliative care and mental health supports, so people don't feel that MAID is the only option.
Do you have any final thoughts, given that, obviously the column today for you, has been pretty personal?
This is a very challenging and complicated subject. But Canada is a very different place today than when doctrines opposing MAID were created. Today, the majority of Canadians are not church-going, and they don't support church tenets and rules. Most of them aren't religious, and so for religious groups, that means coming to terms with the fact that they don't hold sway over most people in this country anymore. If they want to oppose MAID and they want their members to be in line with that, fine. But they can't tell others what to do. They also can't tell the government what to do. And increasingly, they can't even tell their own members what to do. They just don't have the same voice on the issue. So maybe it's time for them to think about the best ways to engage Canadians over this subject, not just always say no when it comes up. But what form that could take could vary. But I think it could start by making sure that they support life in all ways, not just oppose plans for dying. And then maybe then they can recapture their voice in the public square on this issue.
John, thank you for this week. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is our faith contributor, John Longhurst. And if you have an idea, by the way, for John's column on the air here, we would love to hear from you. You can always pitch it, and we'd love this in writing. So radio 893 at cbc.ca, radio 893 at cbc.ca.
CBC Gem is your ultimate sports destination. It's free, it's live and on demand, and it's everything you need for a summer full of edge-of-your-seat sports action. Experience exciting leagues featuring elite athletes in the Wanda Diamond League, the new Northern Super League with top women's international and Canadian players, and a whole lot more. Watch free on CBC Gem.
So there is one traffic issue. Corey's just updating this for us. It's 788-3093. We want to remind you, first of all, that school zones 30K is what you need to be doing. That shifted on September 1st. Today there's going to be educators, teachers going back. So it's going to be busier. But the traffic issue is northbound Keniston and Grant. There is a stalled car in the left lane. Otherwise, you can update Corey. Thank you, Corey. 788-3093 is where you can do that. 18 degrees, and let's get to sports news with Scott Regier, who's back with us. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Marcy.
So let's start with tennis. The Canadians continue to impress at the Open.
They really do. None more so, Marcy, than Felix Auger-Aliassime. The Montrealer beat Andrei Rublev in straight sets yesterday, booking a spot in the quarterfinals. Auger-Aliassime hasn't been this far at this tournament in 4 years.
It feels even better than the first time. I think, the first time, at 21, I was kind of, on my way up. And then, to have a few setbacks, injuries, struggle with confidence, and then to come back the second time in the quarterfinals here, it feels much better. It feels more deserved, and I'm soaking in, every moment here.
Felix oozing confidence right now, Marcy, after upsetting two of the world's best players. Before he took down Rublev, he toppled third-ranked Alex Zverev. Next up, that quarterfinal match against Australia's Alex de Minaur, and that will go tomorrow.
In the meantime, there's some Canadians to watch out for today, though, right?
Yeah, in women's doubles, Ottawa's Gabriela Dabrowski and her partner Erin Routliffe will play a quarterfinal match this afternoon. So do Laval's Leylah Fernandez and her teammate, the living legend, Venus Williams. Williams and Fernandez, they won't be the favorites to beat top seeds Taylor Townsend and Katerina Sinikova today, but they will be the sentimental favorites for sure. The 45-year-old Williams and 22-year-old Fernandez have almost a mother-daughter vibe out on the court, one that's been taken in by sellout crowds in New York this week. The respect Fernandez has for Venus is pretty clear.
My team members and even my family says, wow, you are growing, playing with Venus, learning from her. I mean, you may not say much on the bench, but whatever you say, I'm kind of a sponge and just kind of soaking everything in. And, it's a huge opportunity for me to just learn from such a great champion, a legend like you.
Leylah Fernandez, who Venus Williams calls, Marcy, her favorite ever partner, aside from her sister Serena. Speaking of Serena, the game's best ever women's player has not been attending matches at the U.S. Open so far. That could change if Venus and Leylah manage an upset today and make the semis. Venus has been using her post-match interviews to lobby her sister to make the trip to New York. So we'll see. In the meantime, that quarterfinal today starts sometime after 3 o'clock Central.
That's high praise for Leylah, huh?
Yeah, I'll say.
All right, tennis aside, it's been a pretty busy Labor Day weekend in sport.
Yeah, including the Blue Jays bullpen letting them down again, Marcy. In Cincinnati yesterday, they gave up 3 runs in the 9th inning and fell to the Reds, and that division lead is dwindling. They're at 2.5 games now. The Labor Day Classics in the CFL won by Toronto dramatically on a final second field goal, and Calgary Stamps held Edmonton without a touchdown yesterday in that win. And finally, Marcy, can you name the sport by the sound effect?
Oh, it's a racket sport, so it's got, I'm going to say, it's not pickleball because there's too much squeaking. Is it handball?
Nice. Oh, it's badminton. Pretty close, though. Badminton is a sport where Canada's got one of the world's best right now. Markham, Ontario's Victor Lai showed that over the weekend by winning bronze at the World Championship. Lai, the first Canadian to ever claim a medal at the Worlds. When he was just 14, Marcy was asked how he got into the sport.
I like to play computer games,
And my dad, he didn't like me playing computer games because he said that once you get glasses, you can't get rid of glasses. So he signed me up for this badminton group lesson. And after the 10 lessons, the coach came up to me and said that I had a lot of talent and I should continue playing. So I continued playing, and here I am.
See, parents, if you can just wedge your teenager off the couch and get them into a sport, good things will happen. Good reminder on this first day of school, I reckon.
Yeah, I love that. All right, thanks, Scott.
You bet.
That is Scott Reguer with Morning Sports. Still ahead, we are going to have the Premier of Manitoba on the program. It is our first monthly interview with Premier Canoe since the summer break. So he's going to join us after 8. Right now, though, it's 7:30 and time for your news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 18 degrees, and this is as good as it gets today. That is our high for the day, a mix of sun and clouds, bit of a northerly breeze, and we are feeling the fall in the air. Our temperatures will be below normal for the rest of the week. A former Afghanistan journalist says many people in his home country are suffering after that devastating earthquake late Sunday. Abdul Farid Ahmad now lives in Winnipeg. He knows people in the area where the earthquake hit. Ahmad says one friend is actually feeling lucky that only 3 of his family members were hurt, but his neighbor is mourning the deaths of 11 loved ones.
He don't know where to go because he said that all the family members were young and they couldn't escape. Children, women, old people.
The Afghan Red Crescent Society says the confirmed number of dead from yesterday's devastating earthquake has now reached 1,100. And with more than 8,000 homes destroyed in the disaster, there are fears the number of fatalities will continue to climb. According to Ahmad's friend, some people, like his family, are only alive because they weren't sleeping when that earthquake hit just before midnight. Now to Sudan's Darfur region, where at least 1,000 people have been killed after a landslide wiped out an entire village.
And this is right in the middle of the conflict and the rainy season and the cholera outbreak.
Antoine Girard, the UN's Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator for Sudan. The rebel group in control of the village says it was leveled to the ground after days of torrential rain. Girard says this area of Darfur has been hosting thousands of people displaced by war. You can hear more on these stories as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A North Winnipeg trailer park has been the target of vandalism and anonymous threats through this summer. People in River Grove mobile home estates say their mailboxes were spray painted with the words trailer trash. A sign was later posted in a field telling residents to stay away from River Grove Drive, a community just south of the trailer park. And then came an anonymous letter stating trailer park residents are, quote, breaking the law and messing up a beautiful area. Guido Sarasani owns the trailer park. He says there has been animosity with some River Grove neighbors for years.
Majority of them in River Grove aren't our enemies, right? They're our friends. So it's just a token few that make it miserable for everybody else, right? And, you know, there's a lot of people that are intimidated easily, and that's what this letter has done, right?
At least one River Grove resident tells CBC there have been issues with trailer park residents not cleaning up after their dogs. It is unclear who's behind the vandalism or the letter. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is finding its way into everyday life. But what about something as personal as therapy? Some therapists in Winnipeg have started using AI-powered note-taking tools. The software helps to summarize and complete patient documentation, but not everyone's sold on that idea. 19-year-old Riley Gerard says it's not for her.
I just don't know where they're storing their information. I don't know who owns that information. I don't know where all of that is kind of going. I'm just more comfortable with it's written down where my therapist has it, and I trust her with that information. I don't trust an AI model.
The provincial government says there are currently no regulations when it comes to the use of AI in healthcare and therapy settings, but some advocates say now is the time to put those regs in place. They came from communities in northern Manitoba and Ontario to honor Norwegian hiker Stefan Skovik.
His footsteps reached across the oceans. It reached into the northern wilderness and deep into the hearts of Indigenous communities here in Canada.
Pastor Marty McLean, as more than 100 people gathered for Schotelvik's funeral in Winnipeg. The 29-year-old was found a week ago on the banks of the Hayes River. He drowned a few kilometers from his goal of reaching York Factory in Manitoba after leaving northern Ontario by foot. Schotelvik was also hailed for impact he had on First Nations communities during his time in Canada. Many say he embraced Indigenous culture with respect and openness. Canadian actor Graham Greene has died.
Tatanka. Tatanka. Buffalo. Oh. Buffalo. Tatanka.
That is Greene on the big screen opposite Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves in 1990. That movie earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Graham Greene's manager confirms he died Monday in Stratford, Ontario, of natural causes. He was 73. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, to the forecast now with Abby.
Yeah, we're gonna see more like a mix of sun and clouds today. Some areas will be seeing a slim chance of showers. Winnipeg, we're hovering 17, 18 degrees, partly cloudy outside. More clouds will roll in, a slim chance of showers in the forecast. Temperatures will stay around 18 degrees for most of the day. In the Westman region, we're seeing Brandon sitting at 15 degrees, warming to 19. In the Parkland region, Dauphin is at 12 on cloud. We saw some rain earlier. More rain still in the forecast. Highs around 18. Gimli is at 15, warming to 17. Slim chance of showers in the forecast. Flin Flon at the Power, we're seeing 7 degrees there. Some sunny conditions already making its way there. We still have local smoke in that region. Thompson, 8 light showers. We're expecting about 10 to 15 millimeters, warming up to 5, dropping to 5 degrees rather. And Marcy, Thompson will see the first minus this season. -2 later tonight in Thompson. Churchill 7 degrees, and we'll see temperatures get to 9 degrees. Churchill will cool off to 3 degrees later tonight. So it's more like the cool fronts appearing, Marcy.
It's on time, at least.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice that the long weekend was really hot and sweaty and very summery, no doubt about it.
I have not said -2 in a while.
Right, it's
Thompson
been a while
-2 tonight.
All right, Corey, what's up in the commute?
Yeah, heard earlier from Tyler, northbound Keniston at Grant in the far left turning lane, there's a stalled car. That was about half an hour ago. Maybe it's cleared, maybe it's not. Would love an update. Also, school zones in effect starting today, or starting actually as of yesterday, 30 kilometers per hour in school zone. So keep an eye out for that. Give me a call if you see anything, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
I am watching a polar bear right now, a video. He's swimming at the zoo, and there's flowers. There's little flowers in the water floating on top, and he's kind of wading through them. And then there's all their images that I'm looking at that have monkeys also playing with flowers. Let's find out all about this garden that I'm talking about here. Some gardeners put a lot of effort into keeping animals away from their crops, but there's a team over at the Assiniboine Park Zoo, a team of volunteers at the park, and they're sharing the fruits of their labor with some of the furry and feathered friends. For the past 3 years, Assiniboine Park Conservancy's master gardener volunteers have been tending to what they call an enrichment garden. And flowers and veggies are grown there, and then they're given to animals at the zoo, either as nutrition or for enrichment. I described some of those images and videos. Laverne Dolan is a master gardener volunteer with the Assiniboine Park Conservancy and with us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So can you describe the garden? Like, where is it in the park, and what's grown in it?
Well, we started the gardens back in 2023. It's in the area of the Volunteer Resource Center. When you just come in the zoo from the main entrance, it's on the left-hand side. And we have a group of 6 dedicated master gardeners that tend to the gardens.
And what have you got planted in there? I described some flowers because those are and there's vegetables there clearly as well. But what kinds of varieties of things have you planted?
Well, we've got turnips, beets, cilantro, lots of herbs, cilantro, dill, basil, thyme, calendula flowers, marigold flowers, lots of squash. The resource building is almost encompassed right now with all the squash leaves that are growing. It's been quite successful. We have 5 raised beds now. We started off with 4 by 8 raised beds, and one of our volunteers built them. Dr. Enright, who's our Senior Director of Animal Management at the zoo, had the vision of the gardens, and we started just by gathering our volunteers together. We planted and tended to the gardens.
Yeah, because you've been involved. You've been involved for some 10 years, I understand, as a volunteer there. And you mentioned Dr. Enright. The vision, I guess, is what? Is that enrichment would mean different smells and tastes? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, enrichment will stimulate the animals to their natural instincts and their smells. They like the smells, the textures. They'll forage and explore for the enrichment harvest that we provide, and they'll play with the items. It's kind of cute. We've got a picture of one of the gibbons hiding his beak because he didn't want anybody to see it. It was really quite cute.
His beak?
Yeah, he was really enjoying it. We've got another picture of a bison with the whole carrot, tops and all, hanging out of his mouth, just enjoying it and looking at the squash really curiously. What's this all about? Yeah, it's kind of wonderful to see the photos.
Some of the, I mentioned this video that we'll get up later if people are looking on our website and such, but actually I think we got it now if you're watching live on YouTube. Brad's a superstar. I didn't know if we'd be able to get this up. Thanks, Brad. So there's these videos here. So there's one of a polar bear and there's one of a bird. It looks like a crane, just like poking at the edge of a flower and completely engaged. Like pressing on it, like, is that a beak or is that an actual flower?
Yeah, it's really quite curious. I love the one with the monkey when he's holding up one of the flowers and just kind of examining it and smelling it. And they love the borage, and it's got a bit of a prickly stem. And they like the blue flowers, and you could see them just enjoying themselves, having something different to look at. And they'll put up different feeders so that they have some curiosity so they can go hunting for what's being brought in. I really do love the video of the polar bear in his aromatherapy bath.
Oh, is that what that is? Here's the polar bear video. If you're watching the show, you can't beat this. He's literally floating at the top of the water and his little nose keeps going up to sniff the flowers. And then he goes back down and back up. And it's also just beautiful. You know, he's white, the water's blue, the color of all those flowers, oranges and yellows floating around. And you said the monkey too. I mean, that's also just classic. There's pictures of donkeys and goats. So obviously they're into it. What's it like for you? To see the animals, to see their eyes brighten up with something different and new?
Well, as gardeners, we all love to see everything grow, but I think one of the most rewarding things for us, it's enrichments for our gardeners too, and the volunteers that don't have gardens to see the gardens and know it's going to, such a worthy cause. And it's really something that's valuable, and it provides us a lot of enjoyment to see that we're doing something that's so valuable.
How can people get involved with the garden if they are listening to us and they're interested, Laverne?
Well, they can contact volunteer resources. They do search for volunteers yearly, and they can just apply. They go through, the training process, and you can volunteer in many, many opportunities. It's such a wonderful place to volunteer for that reason, because everyone has different skills that they like to use, and there's such a variety of volunteer opportunities, including the gardens. We not only have the enrichment gardens, we've got the English gardens, we've got the beautiful leaf gardens that are just lovely. And so if you're into horticulture, you can really get a good fix of horticulture happiness. And if you're into zoo animals, you've got all the animals. And, even the enrichment, not only is there the gardens, they do paper mache, they make things for the animals. And it's quite quite interesting.
Lovely.
And very rewarding to be a volunteer at Assiniboine Park.
I'll tell you what, Liver, and it's all showing off this fall because I think our province just looks stunning in the fall and the harvest is bountiful and the rain finally came. Thank you very much for sharing these photos and videos with us and being with us on CBC today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
That's Liver and Dolan with us, Master Gardener Volunteer with the Assiniboine Park Conservancy.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Up next on CBC, there's a conflict brewing between people in two North Winnipeg neighborhoods. On one side, you have River Grove Mobile Home Estates, that's formerly known as the Northgate Trailer Park. On the other side is the neighborhood of River Grove. It has big single detached houses on quiet treed streets. Now, both of these areas are just off Main Street, and you can visualize this if you think close to the North Perimeter. Both communities are full of people who take pride in their homes and neighborhoods. But you're about to see some images on our VMix stream on YouTube this morning of what this has escalated into. So we're looking here at a sign that says, "Keep out." And now we're about to see some Canada Post boxes where there's graffiti scrawled all over them. The conflict has escalated into these accusations. There's also been some anonymous letters with threats. CBC's Jim Agapito went to the communities to find out what's going on, and he's in studio now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So describe, first of all, these two neighborhoods for us, Jim.
Well, I think many of us have a pretty stereotypical view of what a mobile home park looks like, but like a lot of stereotypes, reality is quite different. River Grove Mobile Home Estates has 157 modular houses of all shapes and sizes. Many sit on extremely well manicured and cared for yards. It's a tight-knit community with a community club, a riverside park, and a neighborhood watch. Now, the president of the park says one of the mobile homes there recently sold for $500,000, and the neighborhood of River Grove, which is beside it, is a lot like other suburban Winnipeg neighborhoods. Quiet winding streets, large houses with attached garages, big mature trees, and parks which butt up against the Red River. Now, in both places, I met friendly Winnipeggers who love their communities. Now, the two neighborhoods are separated by a small, narrow field and some fencing, and it's pretty easy to walk between the communities, but there are no roads between River Grove and the mobile home park, and that's one of the sources of conflict.
So tell me a little bit about what happened with the road.
Well, there were plans to extend River Grove Drive into the mobile home park. Now, the mobile home park residents wanted safer access to the nearby grocery store and strip mall, and right now, the only way to get out of their community is to make a left turn on Main Street at an uncontrolled intersection. And I don't have to tell you, how busy Main Street can get, and people there say it's dangerous. But for residents of River Grove, they didn't want to see an increase of traffic on the street because they thought it could impact the safety of the residents, and if it became a thoroughfare for the mobile park, that would happen. Now, the plans to extend River Grove Drive are currently up in the air, but there's a lot more going on than just that.
So what else is going on between these two communities?
Some of the people in River Grove Mobile Home Estates feel like they're not welcome in River Grove. So someone put up, a keep out sign in River Grove, which you saw, which is directed towards the people in the mobile home park. And some people, someone spray painted the mobile home park mailboxes with the term trailer trash.
So that's what it says, that image we saw there.
Yeah, and that really upset Joan Werman, a resident there.
The old saying, trailer trash. We're not worthy of anything, but we all have. I got a 1,675 square foot home. It's beautiful. We're supposed to be friends, we're supposed to be neighbors and look out for our fellow man, but it just isn't happening. Not with some people. I won't say everybody.
As I mentioned, there are some very nice parks along the river in River Grove, and people from the mobile home park like to walk their dogs over there. But some River Grove residents feel people from the mobile home park shouldn't be doing that. Here's an anonymous letter sent to River Grove Mobile Home Estate President Guido Sarasani. The letter says, "We are kindly telling you to keep your park people and their dogs out of the park and River Grove area. They are breaking the law and messing up a beautiful area, and they have been told. If you do not put a stop to this, action will be taken." And Guido was completely surprised.
But when I opened it up, it basically was I can perceive it as a threat that, our tenants are somehow not supposed to use River Grove Drive. I don't believe that any of our tenants are the type that would throw their dog waste or not pick it up. So, and if they did, then, they should be dealt with as well. But I had one of my tenants about a week ago come up to me and tell me that she's, feels threatened walking down the street because there's a guy there telling her that she can't use the street and take her dog somewhere else.
I tried to talk to that person Guido mentioned, but she was scared of the person who told her not to use the street. She didn't want to be identified in any way. And Guido said he didn't want to go to the police. He'd rather just be a good neighbor and doesn't have issues with the majority of the people in River Grove. But some clearly don't want them there. And Guido says that it stems from the stigma people have towards trailer parks.
Well, there's no doubt at one time trailer parks had that stigma. We tried to change that, first of all, by changing our name from Northgate Trailer Park to River Grove Mobile Home Estates, right? We put in beautiful homes. They don't look anything like a mobile home. They're, if you drive through the park, you'll see that this isn't your typical mobile home. And neither are there's no trailer park movies being filmed here. So it's just a very nice, quiet community.
I just want to highlight too, because we that letter that you handed to me here is it's handwritten, and it also says here the wording: "We are kindly telling you to keep your park people and their dogs out of River Grove." What are the residents of River Grove? I mean, could you reach out to any of them, or did you? Did they tell you what they think of the mobile home park?
Absolutely, Marcy. There were two very different views in the neighborhood. This is what longtime resident Daniela Castellano had to say.
I don't agree with the letter. I think it's a public place. It's a beautiful neighborhood for everyone to enjoy, and it doesn't represent all of us of how we feel living in here compared to the other area.
But another resident, Greg Ferens, feels very differently.
There is a problem. They are coming over here, the trailer park people, and with dogs, and they're letting their dog make a mess and they're not picking up, and there's signs there that's an offense. It's a bylaw. Some are following, some are not, and they're ruining it for everybody. Myself, I'm saying, hey, you're welcome here, but not with your dogs, and that because you're not cleaning up after your dog. Simple as that. There are people in here that they were trying to get a through street coming through. They blocked it. If they had to come through, it would have been worse. I tell you.
So now we've heard from residents. What about the area city councillor?
Well, both communities are represented by North Kildonian City Councillor Jeff Brawadi. He hopes some of the issues stemming from the stalled extension of River Grove Drive get settled by next year. But Councillor Brawadi actually upset some of the people who live in River Grove Mobile Home Estates. Now, here's a clip of Councillor Brawadi at an East Kildonian Transcoda community meeting last September.
The trailer park wanted to have access to River Grove Drive. Yeah. And the neighborhood did not want it. Again, the trailer park is a temporary usage that, again, is transient in nature.
So how did the mobile park residents feel about those comments? You kind of already alluded to the fact some people weren't happy.
Yeah, Marcy, that comment didn't sit well with resident Joan Werman. She says it all stems from the stigmas people have about trailer parks.
I'm disappointed in our city councillor. He made a very derogatory comment last fall during a council meeting that basically said they can pack up their trailers and go. And I think that is terrible, that a city councillor would do such a terrible, terrible thing. We're a people. We voted him in. Personally, I didn't. But we voted him in, and he should be representing everybody, not knocking us down.
Now, Councillor Brawadi has since taken the transient comment back, saying that residents are long-term even though their homes are movable. And he also says the attempt to connect River Grove Drive and the trailer park has been a difficult one, but hopes the matter can be resolved next year. Now, I asked him about the letter, and we agreed that people should be good citizens and clean up after their dogs. But he says there's an underlying tone to all of this.
In this case, there's perhaps a class difference between people living in a trailer park and the single family homes. But perhaps there's a class difference the other way. Sometimes the people living in a more modest home like a trailer are actually classier people than the people that live in the $500,000 plus homes. So it's unfortunate, and just again, everybody calm down.
Yeah, and the River Grove Mobile Home Estate President Guido Sarasani says despite all of this, he just wants both communities to live in harmony.
Again, majority of them in River Grove aren't our enemies, right? They're our friends. So it's just a token few that make it miserable for everybody else, right?
Jim, thanks for bringing this story. And I know there's, if people want to read more, they can go online.
They can, yes.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That is the CBC's Jim Agapito. I spoke with Jim. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, I spoke with Jim on Friday. In case you think I just did a quick jacket change, I'm not that fast. It is 5 minutes to 8 o'clock now on your Tuesday morning. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. Big week. You're going to be thinking about back to school and lunches. I know that students start going back tomorrow, except in the Western School Division. You're back this morning. And then administrators and teachers will be back in most schools across Manitoba this morning. Pretty good first day back. It's 18 degrees right now. We'll stay there for the day. Increasing cloud, just a 30% chance of showers this morning. And our high, as mentioned, around 18. So not much movement. Reminder, school zones down to 30K, and that started September 1st. They will begin enforcing that, and of course, it's for safety, so just watch for folks and slow down. It's going to be busier out there. In traffic, if you need us, 788-3093. Now, before we go to news headlines, let's just take a couple minutes here and talk to Corey Funk, because he is in with some comments that people made. We asked you about some of your highlights of summer 2025, but not surprisingly, Corey, you've just circled the ones where people mentioned impact of the wildfires.
Yeah, I think Barbara Froman kind of sums up a lot of people's feelings this summer. She says, sigh, feeling like I have lost half of summer being stuck inside. My asthma didn't like the smoke. I can't even begin to imagine how the evacuees felt now, taking advantage of every sunny day. Also, someone by the name Squirrely Q wrote in, and they actually finally in early August said they got to have a campfire, which means that the forest fires were less crazy. It wasn't so dry. So that was a nice sign. I finally get to enjoy something near the end of the summer. Also, Lyle Wood, a highlight for him. He lives up in St. Teresa Point.
Hi, Lyle. We met him when we were up there, yeah.
Yeah. He says everyone coming back home after the evacuation
was a highlight.
Was a real highlight.
Of course, yeah, because all those people out of community, and this is a small, tight-knit community.
Exactly.
Lyle's a school principal there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And finally here, just Tracy Mack says, seeing a community pull together to support one another at a very dark time. She says, we live near Lac de Bonnie, and I choose to remember the strength of community.
I like that. I like that people, didn't just highlight all their summer memories and forget fire zones. And, obviously a lot of people writing and live near them.
And finding some good in it too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
So what are the lessons from the fires? We're going to ask Premier Canoe about that. 71 days. That's how long Manitoba was in a state of emergency that started at the end of May. It ended last week. Premier Canoe will be live on Information Radio today after 8 o'clock to reflect on the lessons learned from our season of wildfires. And also, how realistic is it that the Churchill Port redevelopment is going to become a reality? So we have those questions and more in our first monthly interview with the Premier after our summer break. So we'll find out that and also what's top of mind for him today. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock here live on Information Radio on CBC. Heather Wells is in with other news headlines today. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg's Afghan community is reeling after this weekend's deadly earthquake. The Afghan Red Crescent Society says more than 1,100 people have been killed. Abdul Farid Ahmad is a former Afghan journalist now living in Winnipeg. He says for some people he's heard from, survival hinged on being awake when the earthquake hit. We're going to hear more from him, and we'll hear the latest from Afghanistan coming up on World Report at 8. And therapists in Winnipeg have started using artificial intelligence to listen in on and transcribe their sessions. An AI-powered note-taking tool helps summarize and complete patient documentation. We're going to hear reviews and concerns in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead in the program, I mentioned our conversation with Premier Canoe. We also are inviting you to share your summer memories, but also your things you're most looking forward to this week. for back to school. You can call us on the listener line. We would love to hear your voices. 204-788-3205. Well, stay tuned. We're going to have more on the stories affecting not only national but international populations in the world, including the earthquake in Afghanistan and that slide that happened in Sudan, as Heather was mentioning, and more. So stay tuned. That's on World Report next on CBC on 89.3 FM. It's 1 minute to 8 now.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Kathleen Edwards is one of Canada's greatest songwriters, but she says that she's aware that she's never had a hit. That led to a moment where she reconsidered her music, her new album, and really her life. Kathleen will be here to tell you about that and her excellent new album, Billionaire.
Who's gonna save your soul?
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Today, we bring you a special program from Iqaluit, a community unlike any other I have been to in this country. From the premier to a youth leader to artists in a community kitchen, we'll bring you into this distinctive culture in the north, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Chinese President Xi Jinping is meeting with some of his closest allies today. Leaders from Russia, North Korea, and Iran are in Beijing. China is preparing to display its military might. Tomorrow, a massive parade marks Japan's surrender at the end of the Second World War. But it is also being viewed as a chance to build on China's alliances in the face of growing Western powers. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
Sitting down to tea together, it looks like Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping's so-called no-limits partnership is going strong. Moscow counts Beijing as a key strategic partner. Russia's been hit by multiple rounds of Western sanctions imposed after its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Beijing insists it is a neutral party. While a deal with the Russian leader to end the war in Ukraine continues to elude US President Donald Trump, President Xi's welcome of President Putin to Beijing demonstrates their close ties. And with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un also in China to watch over a military parade to mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War, Professor Wu Xinbo of Shanghai's Fudan University says this shows China's international influence is crucial.
For Donald Trump, he may be envious of this because these are the leaders that President Trump very much wants to meet today. Putin, Xi, and Kim Jong-un. So Trump may view this positively and reminds him that he needs to get along with China.
Drew Thompson from the Singapore think tank, the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, says the carefully choreographed parade shows China's growing military power.
Xi Jinping's prominence also underscores that he's in full control of the party, its army, the government, and the propaganda and ideological apparatus of all three.
Xi's display of his diplomatic clout with a group of authoritarian regimes comes at a time when US President Donald Trump's isolationist policies strain Washington's alliances. Laura Westbrook for CBC News, Hong Kong.
In Sudan's Darfur region, it is disaster on top of displacement and disease. A landslide has completely wiped out the village of Tarasin. At least 1,000 people are believed to have been killed. For 2 years, the region has been engulfed in civil war.
And this is right in the middle of the conflict and the rainy season and the cholera break.
Antoine Gerard is the UN Sudan Deputy Humanitarian Coordinator. He told the BBC the war and the terrain make it almost impossible to access this mountainous remote village.
We do not have helicopters, so everything is on cars in the very bumpy roads. It takes time, and it is the rainy season, so some of the time we have to wait a couple of hours, maybe sometime a day or two, to cross a wadi, a valley with water.
He says this part of Darfur has been hosting internally displaced people who fled the fighting farther north. The Taliban says at least 1,400 people have been killed by the earthquake that hit Afghanistan. More than 5,000 homes have been destroyed in the disaster. Some remote regions are still inaccessible. And as Paula Diane Perez reports, members of the Afghan community in Quebec say they are taking relief efforts into their own hands.
Oh, my God. It's hard, you know.
Makai Harif watches devastating images of Afghanistan on her phone. They're photos of the rubble and people in hospital.
I'm going by myself. Even as a long destination to go is hard for my age is over 75, but I want to go to help people.
The founder of the Afghan Women's Center of Montreal says the diaspora has seen this before. 2 deadly earthquakes struck the country in 2022 and 2023. Back then, the organization collected donations. Executive Director Victoria Jahesh says one of the challenges is keeping that money out of the hands of the Taliban, listed by the Canadian government as a terrorist group. So the center has been using its contacts, mainly family members and trusted organizations, to distribute donations to those in need.
So this time, again, we have, some relatives in that particular part, and also we know some very research organizations in Afghanistan on the ground, and they happen to have, a lot of experience.
Jahesh says it's not enough. She wants the Canadian government to help as well. In a statement, Global Affairs Canada says it's providing support to partners on the ground dealing with the existing humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. That includes organizations like the World Food Programme, which are now pivoting to support immediate relief efforts. The federal government says it stands ready to help further as required. Paula Diane Perez, CBC News, Montreal.
Structural firefighters are standing by in case an out-of-control wildfire reaches Fort Providence. Northwest Territories Fire says the flames came within 900 meters of the community yesterday. But fuel breaks have been built, and crews are trying to keep the area damp. Juanita Taylor has more on the work being done to try to protect homes.
These cats are working here. They're tight-lining the fire.
Danny Bolio is working to strengthen the fire break on the outskirts of Fort Providence. He is also the mayor, protecting his community from the raging wildfire.
They have hoses laid all over the town, sprinklers up on the houses, especially the houses, what we call the back street, along the tree line.
The wildfire is pushing towards town. Some essential workers were ordered out Monday, a day after residents began to flee to Hay River, 180 kilometers away. Evacuee Ruby Mendoza is worried.
Am I going to go home? Is my house still going to be standing up when I get home? Or my grandkids are going to have a house to go home to?
The wildfire is one of dozens burning in the Northwest Territories. Premier R.J. Simpson wants more federal support.
Small jurisdiction, and we can only handle so much. We only have so much capacity. But with the world the way it is, with climate change and the frequency and severity of these disasters, it's tough. We're stretched.
Simpson says the territory has reached out to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre for more crews and aircraft to fight this fire. Come midweek, winds are expected to pick up again towards Fort Providence. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Hay River, Northwest Territories.
Israel is mobilizing tens of thousands of reservists, part of its plan to widen its offensive in Gaza City. Ground and air forces are striking 2 western neighborhoods. They also say Gaza City is still home to a vast network of Hamas tunnels. It's also one of the last places of refuge in the northern Gaza Strip. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are sheltering there. It has been more than 2 months since a child was fatally injured at a harness racing track in New Brunswick. His mother says she's still waiting for reports from the coroner and police, and also still does not know why the town of Woodstock allowed races to resume. The CBC's Rachel Cave reports.
Here they come. Cora Fraser says she has watched the June 14th race on video on repeat. Her kids attended the track that day with other family. The video shows the metal gate of the starting truck sweeping so close to the outside fence, people who are leaning on and over the rails jump back. We need an ambulance. Call an ambulance. When Fraser got word her 3-year-old son Gunnar had been hit, she raced to the track.
My oldest daughter, she was screaming, crying.
The town suspended racing on June 17th, then voted to restart August 4th, based on a safety review that no one will release. There is now new fencing up at the track, but the mayor would not do an interview, nor would anyone from the Woodstock Driving Club, Horse Racing New Brunswick, or the Atlantic Province's Harness Racing Commission. Simon Watts, the deputy chief of the Woodstock Police, says prosecutors have yet to review the investigation.
It's technically still active, it's just coming to a conclusion.
Meanwhile, people continue to lean on and over the fences at raceways across Canada, including Charlottetown, one of the maritime tracks that has new warning signs telling people to get back while the starting gate passes. Fraser says she couldn't bear to see it happen again.
I just need details.
Fraser says if changes have been made to ensure public safety, the public should know. Rachel Cave, CBC News, Woodstock, New Brunswick. Tributes are pouring in for Canadian actor Greene. He's being remembered for his Oscar-nominated performance in Dances with Wolves and his refusal to be typecast in certain roles. Greene was from Six Nations Reserve. Some of his film credits include The Green Mile, Die Hard 3, and The Twilight Saga. And this year, he was honored with the Governor General's Lifetime Artistic Achievement Award.
That was a major coup. I thought, wow, why me? It means a lot to be recognized in my own country.
He died yesterday in Stratford, Ontario, after a long illness. Graham Greene was 73. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to what's going to be a busy, busy week on the roadways and in your own households. I bet you're thinking about what to make for lunch. Administrators and teachers back today. And students in the Western School Division, the first to return to class. It's going to be cooler today for back to school in most of Manitoba. Winnipeg right now 18 degrees. In fact, we may have moved from there, but we'll check that with Abby in a moment. This half hour on the program, 71 days. That's how long Manitoba was in a state of emergency that began at the end of May and ended last week. Premier Canoe is live in studio today to reflect on the lessons learned from our season of wildfires, but also how realistic is it that Churchill will be ready for port redevelopment? Will that actually become a reality when you consider that boggy peat that wreaks havoc with those tracks, as Manitobans know? So stay tuned. That and more coming up with our first monthly interview since the summer break with Premier Canoe. Before we get to that, though, let's go to Heather Welsh. She's live in our CBC News Centre on 89.3 FM with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, people in a North Winnipeg trailer park say their community is the target of vandalism and intimidation. Mailboxes at the River Grove mobile home estates were spray painted with the words trailer trash earlier this summer. Weeks later, the trailer park's owner received an anonymous letter. We'll tell you more. And they came from communities across northern Manitoba and Ontario to honor Norwegian hiker Stefan Skovik. More than 100 people gathered in Winnipeg for his funeral yesterday. His sister, Henriette, spoke about her 29-year-old brother's sense of adventure and passion, which she says should be an example for everyone. We'll hear more in our next news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's Heather Wells in our news center. All right, I mentioned that this is an important week, Abby. We had summer weather over the weekend, and today it's cooler.
It's more of a cooler day today, and for Winnipeg, we already touched our high for the day. We just get a cool off from this point on. We already touched that 18 degrees. It's just going to fluctuate between 18 and 17 degrees for the rest of the day. We'll see light winds coming from the northwest. Clouds will be in the afternoon. A slim chance of showers somewhere in there, mix of sun and clouds. And then tonight, we're going to cool off to around 8 degrees. In the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures hover between 12 and 18 degrees also. And up north, we will see temperatures get to around 12 degrees for most regions up north. So southern regions will be staying mild with highs near 19 degrees, while up north, we're going to see cooler temperatures getting close to 12 degrees. Winnipeg, we are at 17 right now.
What was in your lunch, in your lunch, Abby, as a kid? What did you always get as a kid?
I was that kid that really loved school so much. I always brought my sandwich back home.
Oh, my mom like pierogies, like so sick of pierogies, like unreal. Yeah, like my sister's kids. And I know everyone in Manitoba is going, what? That sounds like the best lunch. My sister's kids got pierogies so much from their baba. And like that would go to school for lunch or whatever. Because my mom was a very busy mom, my sister, busy mom of three. That my nieces and nephews were like, okay, can we get a sandwich? Maybe?
I just wasn't sure if I was punishing that woman because she's going to pack very well, with the drinks
your mom?
and
Yeah.
my cookies and everything, and I bring it back home.
But what we've heard from your mom, I don't think you want to mess with your mom.
No.
Corey Funk, you don't have kids that are going back to school yet. They're too small, but...
No, too small. And lunch is provided at daycare, which is a real handy.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice
I know, game
stuff.
changer.
So you don't have to pack any of that.
Nope.
Yeah. What about you then, when you were a kid?
You know what? I this is just the most memorable lunches. Usually it was the classic sandwiches, carrot sticks, the whole. But
Yep, I walked home for lunch, so I
my
didn't.
Guido was a hunter, and we would always have leftover deer stew that I would get to bring every once in a while, and I would make everybody jealous.
Really moist, really
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, you are here to talk about the commute today?
Yes. The one issue we've heard of today may still be an issue, may not, is northbound Keniston at Grant. There's a stalled car in the far left lane. May still be causing some issues, not totally sure, but keep right to get around that. Other than that, though, school zones start today, or started yesterday, actually, technically, because it's September. So heads up there, it goes down to 30. Slow down if you're going through those school zones, even if you don't see kids crossing. That's still the law. But if you see anything else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, today is our first monthly interview with the Premier of Manitoba after our summer break. And what a summer we have had up to now. Manitoba was under a state of emergency due to wildfires for 71 days. We also had moving tariff targets and the promises of economic development coming late in the summer at the port of Churchill. And then, of course, the housing crisis in this province is only going to escalate once fall turns into winter. We had some updates last week on what's happening there. Premier Canoe is live in studio. Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
So why don't we start with the wildfires? I don't know if you've even formulated this yet, but what is the biggest lesson you learned from the wildfires in Manitoba this summer?
Well, there's a ton, and let's just keep in mind that there's still about 5,500 people out of their homes right now. So we're talking about going back to school in Winnipeg, but there's still more than 5,000 folks in the north who are just thinking about going back to home, right? Back to their houses. So we're still working on that. And at this point, we still have people actively fighting the wildfires. And there's a huge effort on the part of Manitoba Hydro to try and get the repairs done for many of these communities before we get into those cold winter months. And it is going to be a sprint on the Manitoba Hydro side to do that. But acknowledging those things, I think there's been many, many lessons learned. I think first and foremost, the climate is changing. We had two back-to-back very difficult summers. This one just at a whole other level. But let's not forget that last year was pretty challenging, particularly for people in areas like the Paw and Cranberry Portage. So the climate is changing, and we're going to have to adapt. And that means that this year was a very dry year. So not only did we have the wildfires, but we had ag-related drought impacts, like particularly for livestock producers in the Interlake region. And then we got communities like York Factory with the low water levels downstream who are being impacted on transportation. And, other years we're going to have flooding again. So we have to be able to navigate the impacts of a changing climate.
Can I interject and just get us back to fires for a moment? Because there's three things I wanted to make sure I asked you about, even though I acknowledge that you're still figuring this out. Yeah. But regarding prevention, we did do a big story about it last week on CBC, and we have been told your government's reviewing Manitoba's preparedness and suppression efforts. Can you share anything with us about what direction you would take for better forest management in the future, given, especially what you said, this climate change is here to stay, and this is not going to be a blip of a summer. This is something ongoing.
It is something ongoing, and I think it was pretty frustrating to have those American Congress people with the ambulance chasing mentality trying to say that this is about forest management. No, this is not. This is about drought and weather, and again, being able to tell those folks that the Trump administration is not a fan of them. That was, I think, what a lot of people in Manitoba, Canada, wanted to hear.
So, do you add resources? What are you looking at?
Yeah, no, we're definitely definitely in the process of rebuilding the Manitoba Wildfire Service. Under the PCs, the pay for our wildfire fighters went to the, pretty much the lowest in the entire country. So that's part of it.
You're upping the pay then to try to attract more people?
Well, that's part of the negotiations we got to do with their union, right? So it's not just up to us. We got to work on that together. We've ordered more water bombers, right? I think we announced that before this wildfire season. We can't get those things quickly enough. And then when we're fighting wildfire in a lot of the communities, whether it's a reserve or whether it's a town or a city, even like Flin Flon, one of the techniques that's used is like dozer guards and cat guards, which is basically knocking down a bunch of trees so that there's an area where the fire can't jump across. So looking potentially at doing some things like that proactively before a wildfire season starts, I think is going to be one of the things that we look at. So yeah, there's a whole heck of a lot of things. We'll do a review inside government where we look at, what worked, what didn't, not just the fires, but also the evacuations and stuff like that. But I think we're also going to convene an outside group of people outside government to share their perspectives and to give us, some insight into forest management. What do we do with trauma-informed, health and all policies approach to people who are being pushed out of their homes for a long time? And then, of course, the actual fighting of fires. How do we keep local fire departments, the wildfire service, all the different players, Office of the Fire Commissioner, working together in a good way.
2 more quick questions on fire. One of them is, and you spoke to this a little bit, the plans for people that are out of their homes for some time. So this year, this happened quickly. I acknowledge this, but, making space for evacuees, asking hotels to step up. And then it was like, we need more hotels to step up. And then the Red Cross responding to needs. There were some criticisms that needs weren't being met. Do you envision that we need a more permanent evacuation space that's in Winnipeg all the time, given what happened this year, that we need to develop something?
We actually stood something up in Portage La Prairie. People in the Portage area know the MDC. This was the former Manitoba Development Center, which, because we moved away from institutionalization, and so people with,
space there now.
Yeah, exactly. Long story short is you got hundreds of units and cottages in that area. So by the end of this wildfire season, by the end of the state of emergency, we were housing evacuees in there. And now I think at the end of this season, and part of that internal review we're going to look at is, okay, now that we've reactivated this facility and got it into a condition where it can house people, what are we going to use that for?
Could it be part of a permanent solution moving forward, you're saying?
Well, that's what we need to ask is, what is this going to be used for? Is this going to be a permanent Manitoba evacuation center going forward? If so, how do we work with northern communities to say, let's say you do, God forbid, have to evacuate your homes. How are you going to get people quickly from a First Nation or town or city in the north to a facility like that? And how are you going to support people in those areas? But then again, maybe, hey, you want to talk homelessness a little bit later on, maybe the housing needs are something that we got to look at there too. So it's going to be a bit of a balancing act and trying to judge the priorities that we have as a province.
I do have to just revisit one more thing that you mentioned just now. Like, it is not just U.S. officials saying that we need forest management, of course. The Canadian Council of Forest Ministers says that suppression alone is no longer adequate. BC and wildfire ecologist Robert Gray, is advocating clearing, thinning trees around communities in fire-prone areas. What's your response to that? We can't just dismiss this as the U.S. has, insulted us, with this, that we actually do need to do a better job here of figuring out what to do with forest management.
Well, there is forest management going on. But what I would say is when we got the Louisiana Pacific MOU in place with 3 First Nations in the parkland, I think that was a really, really important step to show that we could come up with what is effectively a co-management process for forestry. And that is particularly around harvesting for lumber and for siding in homes. But I think it does point the way to a future in Manitoba where we're working with northern communities, Indigenous partners. And so I just think it was like a watershed moment that highlights the future there. And then when we think about, again, like I was saying, dozer guards, cat guards, things like that, which are sort of things that we might be able to do proactively in the future. That's another kind of piece that we want to look at. And then finally, the other thing that I would point to is when you talk to the wildfire fighters themselves, they'll tell you that value protection is the future of the wildfire service.
What does that mean?
I think, yeah, exactly. I think that's what we want to dig into. Value protection means if you fly over top of Flin Flon, earlier this summer, you could see, which we did, you could see the homes and cottages that had sprinklers set up around them. Like these interventions that the wildfire fighters and the fire departments make actually work to protect homes and to protect businesses and protect properties.
So getting ahead of things inside community.
Well, the challenge is we had a government that didn't buy any equipment for 7.5 years, and so we have to rebuild that, right? And then the final thing is when the Americans point the finger at us for smoke, that is something that needs to be called out. That is offensive.
8:24 a.m. Premier Rob Canoe on with us for our monthly interview. We're going to try to get through a number of different issues here. This is a brief topic that I don't know if you're going to have a long answer to, but there's a race now on for new leader of the federal NDP. That's today, launched. In April, that federal party saw the worst results in the party's history. Given all of that, do you feel pressure to run?
I got the best job in the world. No, I'm focused on getting reelected in Manitoba if you folks will have me again.
I want to ask about Churchill.
Yeah.
How much is Manitoba willing to commit to spending on the upgrading of the Port of Churchill to position it in the way that that Prime Minister Carney is talking about?
Well, first of all, it was really exciting. It was like a shot of life. I was in Western Manitoba for the by-election when he made these comments, and people in southwestern Manitoba communities were excited about this because I think everyone recognizes agriculture, mining, energy, all these different industries will benefit.
And I should interject because you said you're in Western Manitoba when he said that, but you were actually on last week. You posted a picture on Instagram. You were north. The caption said, "Exciting week for Churchill after Prime Minister Carney." Oh, at the Ledge. Pardon me. Okay,
that photo was taken a day or two after he made the comments.
Got it. So you in this photo are with Rebecca Chartrand, minister, who represents Churchill, the mayor. And then Chris Avery from Arctic Gateway Group.
Yeah.
What did you discuss with those officials?
Well, we're working closely together. We want to make sure that this project gets to the next level. So for context, we in the federal government invest about $30 million each year. Like you can look at the press releases and it'll be plus or minus. One year it might be 50, one year might be slightly below 30. But basically you could say the average is we each invest $30 million per year. The feds invest in the rail line. In the province, we invest in the port facilities, right? So where the ships get loaded up with zinc and other critical minerals. And we're going to continue doing that for the foreseeable future, I'm sure. But the real opportunity with Churchill is this. Again, we are living in a changing climate, and the scientists out of U of M and other places tell us that shipping season in Churchill is going to be open year-round in about 70 years. You think of what's going on with the advancements of tech and, just the broader industry that we're pursuing around the globe. 70 years from now, we're going to be launching rockets from Churchill. There's going to be a huge amount of energy development. There's probably going to be compute in northern Manitoba. There's going to be all sorts of things going on there. So why am I saying this kind of like sci-fi vision of northern Manitoba? Because our responsibility today is to lay down the base level of infrastructure to allow us to build towards that. So when you ask what's going on in that meeting, we are putting together a comprehensive plan to make sure that before we move from the $30 million level of investment towards the $30 billion level of investment, that we have all the logistics and lead planning exercises carried out.
So one of the big planning that you have to figure out, no matter what, is how not to. I know you said it's a federal responsibility, but I mean, is it even possible to move heavy goods that are going to come across the country, heavy minerals, up to Churchill and the port over the boggy land where tracks are notoriously difficult to maintain? Like, is that even physically possible? Or are you doing studies right now to even see the way?
Definitely. Yeah, no, I absolutely think it's possible. Again, you just look at the scale of what sophisticated engineers and project managers are able to do today. I'm sure we can solve this. But the important thing you got to remember, too, is that this is all political. Manitoba, as a region, we're competing against Ontario and Quebec and BC and every other province and part of this country for the attention of the federal government to be one of the mega projects right now. So all the chatter about like, oh, Churchill, we're not going to be able to do it. is that really a technical roadblock that's put up, or is that one of the other provinces trying to hate on Manitoba's ability to move forward?
Well, when I'm asking, it's not a technical roadblock. It's us having looked at Churchill for years and knowing that
who raised the issue? You know what I mean? Like here, we're moving forward. You know, we're doing investment year after year.
But in your lifetime and mine, we've never seen those rail lines to Churchill not have problems with weight or with sinking or with transport.
Well, that's because it was privatized by a former government and the private owner didn't invest in maintenance.
Yeah. So are you looking at how much...
You can't run any sort of infrastructure if you don't maintain it over the years.
But
right?
But now is the time to know how much money it will actually cost, right, to do it.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
To do it, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
When are we going to... pardon me. I was going to ask you about the timeline on something, but I'm looking at our time now and realizing I have a minute and a half.
Running short.
I want to ask you about housing. I do want to. We'll have a lot of time to talk about Churchill, Premier. But I do want to make sure I ask you about housing because your housing minister was out last week updating the strategies going forward. And I'm wondering. I'm wondering what the province could do to add more interim shelters using existing buildings maybe to get folks off the street more quickly, because I know that your strategy is looking at long-term support, wraparound support, so people they stay in housing once they come off the street. And I get that that's a priority, but winter's coming, we don't have enough builds, even though there's lots in the works, and some of those numbers were highlighted. Do you think we should be seeking 24/7 hours at our current shelters and maybe seeking some more existing spaces we could upgrade for that could put a roof over people's heads if they wanted immediately to get off the street?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've moved it's more than 70 people now out of tents and into housing, and all of them have stayed in housing because of the wraparound supports that we've been able to connect them with. So when you look at the number of people who are actually living in tents, again, like I realize that the street census gets done and they have a much broader definition of homelessness that includes people couch surfing. But if you look at people who are only sleeping in tents, it's about 700. So we've moved the needle by about 10%. Again, that's nowhere near where we want to get. All of us drive by encampments and stuff, and we know that there's so much more that needs to be done. But in terms of getting off to a start, we've left the gates, we've left the harbor. We're now in the process of moving people out of tents into housing. In terms of more units, absolutely. Again, this is one of the challenges of having a former government that didn't build any housing and sold public housing off for 7.5 years, is there's a pent-up demand that we're trying to catch up with. So not only meet the needs of those 600 plus people out on the streets, but also to be able to anticipate what the future needs are going to be. So we're working on that. We're working with folks in the shelter sector, if you will.
Do you think shelters should be 24/7?
Well,
or 24-hour wheel in the meantime?
Typically they are when there is the need. And I mean, what you have is a seasonality. Like we see a seasonal effect here, right? And so when the weather gets cold in Winnipeg, there is that increasing demand at the shelters. And then when the weather warms up, you have a lot of people who don't want to stay in shelter anymore. And then it's up to us as government to go out and try and find them and coax them and convince them and say, we would like to connect you with housing, which is what we've been able to do so far.
You and I are being played off, as they will. There's no music to stop us, but we are over news time now, Premier. And I thank you for...
I'll put my headphones on next time so I can hear the playing music.
I thank you for your time. It's our first monthly interview. We'll talk to you in detail, of course, in the weeks ahead and next month. Thank you. Yeah. Premier Canoe live with us, being generous with his time on CBC, covering a number of different topics here live. In case you're wondering why we didn't ask about education, the education minister you will hear from on Thursday. Your news is next. It's 8:31.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:32, it's 17 degrees in Winnipeg. We're not going to get much better than that. A high of 18 as we start to feel like fall in Winnipeg. A North Winnipeg trailer park has been the target of vandalism and anonymous threats through this summer. People in River Grove Mobile Home Estates say their mailboxes were spray painted with the words trailer trash. A sign was later posted in a field telling residents to stay away from River Grove Drive, south of the trailer park. Then, an anonymous letter stating trailer park residents are, quote, breaking the law and messing up a beautiful area. Guido Sarasani owns the trailer park. He says there has been animosity with some River Grove neighbors for years.
The majority of them in River Grove aren't our enemies, right? They're our friends. So it's just a token few that make it miserable for everybody else, right? And, there's a lot of people that are intimidated easily, and that's what this letter has done, right?
At least one River Grove resident tells CBC there have been issues with trailer park residents not cleaning up after their dogs. Some people in eastern Afghanistan may only be alive today because they were awake late Sunday night when an earthquake hit. Abdul Farid Ahmad is a former Afghan journalist now living in Winnipeg. He says for some people he's heard from, survival hinged on being awake.
People could make out of the house, they're safe. The people who couldn't, who were sleeping, they have been died.
It is now more than 24 hours since that earthquake hit that remote part of Afghanistan, and humanitarian groups say getting to the affected area is still a challenge. The Afghan Red Crescent Society says more than 1,100 people have been killed and more than 8,000 houses have been destroyed. The search for survivors is ongoing. Therapists in Winnipeg have started using artificial intelligence to listen in on and transcribe their sessions. An AI-powered note-taking tool helps summarize and complete patient documentation. Gavin Patterson is the director of Wildwood Wellness Therapy, a practice in Osborne Village. He's been using the program Clinical Notes AI for nearly a year and says it is improving care for his patients.
It helps me focus more on the content in the session. So when I'm working with clients one-on-one, I'm able to free myself of writing down everything and be fully present in the conversation.
There are, though, privacy concerns. While the program Patterson uses does not record or store data from sessions, other programs do store the data until the clinician decides to delete it permanently. Well, they came from communities in northern Manitoba and Ontario to honor Norwegian hiker Stefan Skovik.
His footsteps reached across the oceans. It reached into the northern wilderness and deep into the hearts of Indigenous communities here in Canada.
Pastor Marty McLean, as more than 100 people gathered for Schotelvik's funeral in Winnipeg yesterday. The 29-year-old was found a week ago on the banks of the Hayes River. He drowned just a few kilometers from his goal of reaching York Factory after leaving northern Ontario by foot. Yesterday, his sister Henriette spoke about her brother's sense of adventure.
Even though Stefan knew about the risks, nothing could stop him. To have that passion and to let it lead you should be an example to follow for all of us.
Schotelvik was also hailed for the impact he had on First Nations communities during his time in Canada. Many say he embraced Indigenous culture with respect and openness. And as students across the country return to school, a new report suggests bullying, poverty, and mental illness are on the rise among Canadian youth. The Raising Canada report says more than 70% of Canadian teens say they experienced some form of bullying in the previous school year. As well, it says at least 13% of Canadian children are living in poverty. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you to Heather Wells, to also Megan Ketcherson and Joni Nicolo out in our news center. Thanks to associate producers Jenna Badasso and Marshall Hodgins for their work on today's show, and reporter Jim Agapito. Thanks to Brad Lillies, Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, and Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez, all in our unit leading the charge. Corey Funk, no traffic?
No, North Keniston, Grant might still be a car stalled in the left lane.
Okay. And then school zones?
School zones, 30 kilometers per hour.
Tomorrow you're out live at Gordon Bell.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to be talking about lots of interesting stuff going on there, especially the renos, which I'm sure a lot of people see as they drive by.
All right. So Corey's going to be live there tomorrow, and all the back-to-school stories through the week. Abby, last word on the weather?
17, 18 degrees in the south and up north. We're seeing 7 to 11 degrees.
All right. So that leaves us this morning. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Information Radio. That's Tuesday's show. We'll be back again tomorrow. And Western School Division, once again, have a wonderful day back at school, students. Take care. Be well. The Current's next.